Chapter 735. Why did you suddenly mention God? Han Xiao frowned. Back then, when they were attacked by God's doppelganger, it was Hereful who fought alongside him. Since Hereful brought this up again after 7 years, something must have happened. Without any hesitation, Han Xiao sent a message to Hereful, asking for his opinion. However, after waiting for a long time, Hereful did not reply. Han Xiao suddenly had a bad feeling. He summoned Philip and said with a deep voice, "Search for the keyword Hereful and filter out the abnormal entries." Philip hummed and diligently searched online, quickly completing the task. Master, a few days ago, many news channels of the Tyla civilization reported the death of Hereful. Died a few days ago? Han Xiaoxin's heart skipped a beat. Show it to me. Philip heard and played the relevant news. After watching it, Han Xiao finally understood what had happened. Just a few days ago, Hereful had been attacked in the Tyla civilization's official machinery school and had been kidnapped in front of everyone. The 3 calamity-grade supers working in the school could not stop the kidnappers, and the kidnappers left. Hereful's body was only discovered a day later, and the message that Hereful had left for him was the message he had sent before he died. The news stated that the Tyla civilization had confirmed the identity of one of the kidnappers through clues and announced a bounty. Han Xiao opened the bounty information and saw a picture of a pale man. Orozen, blood race, a wanted criminal from 60 years ago. Han Xiao murmured. He did not know this guy. However, after connecting the dots with Hereful's message, the answer was very clear. This guy named Orozen was most likely a subordinate of God. Why did they attack Hereful? Han Xiao frowned. The way he saw it, God had only crossed paths with them in the battle 7 years ago. Could it be that God was so petty that he sent his subordinates to take revenge on them because his doppelganger was schemed against? He felt that this was the only reason that made sense. However, God was a lunatic, and the actions of a lunatic could not be judged by common sense. Han Xiao did not know if God was aware of his current strength. If God only sent out calamity-grade subordinates, it would basically be sending him to his death. Since even his doppelganger was defeated by him, God could not count on calamity-grade subordinates for revenge. As he thought about it, Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. In that case, this group of people might have a trump card similar to the Dark Star leader that can summon God's doppelganger? If that was the case, then it would be a little tricky. Back then, they had banished God because of the terrain advantage and Hereful's help. However, they did not have such conditions now. My strength is no longer the same as before. I've broken through level 220 and completed my promotion. My health is almost twice what it was 7 years ago. Furthermore, I have the Void Star Pursuer talent, which greatly increases my defense. Even if I face God's doppelganger head-on, I won't be as passive as I was 7 years ago. If it's just a doppelganger, God might not be able to threaten my life. With Aurora's potion, it's like I have a few more lives. Han Xiao's brain quickly analyzed the situation and realized that the situation was not that bad. He heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, version 30 had already started, and he had obtained enough experience from the leaks to complete a transformation. His self-defense ability had increased a lot. If he was still at the strength he was 7 years ago, God's revenge would indeed be a threat to him. After carefully reading Hereful's death message again, Han Xiao sighed and could only mourn for this old acquaintance who had once fought side by side with him. At this time, a new mission popped up on the interface. You have triggered the Grade A bounty mission, Hereful's Revenge. Mission Introduction. Hereful was an important member of the Tyla civilization and was accidentally killed. The murderer caused an extremely negative impact, and the Tyla civilization has issued a bounty. As long as you can avenge Hereful, you will receive a huge reward. Mission requirements: capture or kill bounty target Orozen alive. Reward: 23,600 EXP, 800 Aina's bounty, plus 1,800 Tyla civilization favorability. Woe to the players of version 30, the difficulty of this mission is already beyond their level. No wonder the reward is so generous. Han Xiao was speechless. The players of version 30 basically did not have the ability to complete this mission. This was at least 2 or 3 versions later. However, bounty missions were not limited to versions, and many experts had bounties from civilizations or the black market. Even the current players could accept Calamity Grade or even beyond Grade A bounty missions, but it was impossible to complete them. For example, Han Xiao himself, many organizations in the Shattered Star Ring had secretly issued a bounty for him on the black market. The total bounty was about 92 million Ainas, which was an astronomical bounty that even the super-galactic pirates could not match. However, most bounty hunters knew their limits and would not accept such a suicidal mission. The request is to avenge Hereful, Han Xiao pondered. There's no need to waste energy tracking a wanted criminal. This is the job of the Tyla civilization, and a star cluster civilization has more resources to track the murderer. If I go alone, it will be like finding a needle in a haystack. If ES-God subordinates want revenge, they will most likely come to me. I'll just wait for them to come. After pondering for a while, Han Xiao had a plan. He was not prepared to disrupt his rhythm of gaining talents because of this mission. It was fine if ES-God subordinates did not come, but if they really came to deal with him, he would not mind getting rid of the mission target. On this point, he was quite confident. After all, the outside world did not know that he had made another breakthrough in his strength. It could be said that the enemy was in the light while he was in the dark. Based on his experience from 7 years ago, his current combat strength could barely handle the pressure from ES-God's doppelganger. Of course, confidence was one thing, but Han Technician's vigilance would not decrease because of this. I still have to be careful lest I fail miserably. At the same time, somewhere in the Shattered Star Ring, 3 Arc of Light spaceships were slowly traveling through a meteorite belt in stealth mode. There were traces of battle on the bodies of the spaceships, and the nanomachines were repairing the outer armor. Inside the main spaceship, Colin, Orozen, and the others were looking at the data records of a wormhole detector. This was an instrument they had obtained from Hereful, and it contained many years of wormhole research data. One of the data was the data of ES-God's doppelganger falling into the wormhole 7 years ago. The dates match. His Excellency ES-God wants this set of data. Orozen grinned, revealing a few fangs. The memories I read are indeed correct. Orozen's Esper ability was the rare species enhancement, which strengthened his race talent as a blood race. He had the ability to suck blood and read the target's memories. This group of people did not kidnap Hereful to torture him, but to let Orozen suck his blood to obtain the information they wanted. The cause of Hereful's death was being sucked dry. Colin coldly said, however, because of your stupidity, the Tyla civilization discovered your identity. Now, an entire star cluster civilization is chasing after us. After some time, they might find out that we are members of the fallen Arkansas. If not for the fact that you are still somewhat useful, I would really want to kill a piece of trash like you. Orozen did not mind. He leaned against the sofa, crossed his legs, and lazily said, "So what? The Tyla civilization won't be able to catch up to our spaceship. Furthermore, this is the Shattered Star Ring, not the central galaxy ruled by the 3 universal civilizations. Is there a need to be so cautious? Why don't we just have fun? For organizations in such a remote star field, even if they know our identity, what can they do? Do they have the ability to go to the central galaxy to deal with the fallen Ark? Furthermore, even if they really dare to go, they will be crushed to death by His Excellency ES-God." Colin snorted coldly. "If there are any accidents, I will make you pay the price. Instead of worrying about such a small matter, why don't we send the data back first?" Orozen shrugged and chuckled. Hearing that, Colin no longer worried about their whereabouts being exposed. Through the ultra-long-distance quantum communication device, he sent the wormhole data back to the fallen Arkansas. This way, the first mission given to them by His Excellency E.S. God was completed. Colin was quite satisfied with his efficiency. They had planned for more than half a month, and they had successfully kidnapped Hereful and obtained the data immediately. The operation was very smooth. Since they had the data, there was no need to find trouble with Black Star anymore. This team had 3 doppelgangers of E.S. God, and they all had different abilities. Colin did not want to waste any of them on Black Star. They were all important trump cards that E.S. God had given them to steal the Evolution Cube. Stealing the Evolution Cube from Cisco was the most important mission of this trip. In comparison, kidnapping Hereful was not difficult at all. Colin clapped his hands and said with a deep voice, "The data has been sent back. It's time to get down to business. Cisco is a beyond grade A, after all. We need a detailed plan and wait for the right time to act." The 3 spaceships turned and headed toward the star system that Cisco was in. In the desolate universe belt outside the central star sea, the fallen Ark fleet was resting in a secret location. In the main ship, an officer woke up the sleeping E.S. God. "Your Excellency E.S. God, the team we sent to the Shattered Star Ring has sent back news. They have obtained the data you wanted." Hearing this, E.S. God woke up, and the black vortex under his hood turned into a face. He revealed an inexplicable smile and spoke with a hoarse voice. "Very good, very good. Let the research consortium analyze this set of wormhole data and find the place where the other end of the wormhole was connected to. I want to know the coordinates of that area in the universe." "Understood. Let me think. That's right, I asked them to bring the Evolution Cube back. Did they succeed? They did not send back any news about this. They should still be on the move." Yes, God nodded slowly and muttered to himself, "I finally found the whereabouts of the Evolution Cube. The Arcane Church has been looking for it for so long, but they will not know that the records of the evolutionary civilization have always been in my hands. I am the heir of the Evolution Cube, and it can help me complete a higher level of transformation. Cisco does not have the right to have such a treasure." Chapter 736. WWXX by Chapter 737. Because planet Macipher was not a colonial planet but a neutral industrial planet, there were only 5 cities on the surface, 1 main city and 4 satellite cities. Han Shao landed in the largest main city, Delta. Looking down from the sky, the cities of planet Macipher had a very strong industrial style, mainly with huge spaceship factories. Some places even directly assembled large spaceships in the open, and the skeletons of these spaceships could be seen directly from the sky. This planet did not have any real residences, only dormitories for mechanics and entertainment facilities, as well as various hotels for galactic travelers. In the center of the city was a conch-shaped mechanical floating city, which was the headquarters of giant soldier builder Serene. The entire city was shaped like a spiral, narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. At the bottom of the floating city were 16 240-meter-tall sentinel mechanical giant soldiers that were in hibernation mode. As long as they were attacked, they would automatically activate and attack the invaders. The 3 branches of the mechanic class had their own specializations. Serene was obviously a grade A mechanic of the armed class, and he specialized in building powerful mechanical giant soldiers. Han Shao was a virtual mechanic, and he specialized in turning other people's machines into his own shape, allowing other mechanics to feel his broad AI. There were 8 surface ports in the main city of planet Macipher, and the spaceship landed at the 3rd port according to the ground instructions. After entering the hangar, Han Shao went through the simple procedures and brought the disguised Hela and the other 2 out of the port, blending into the crowd, leaving the port and entering the city. Whoosh! The streets were filled with creatures of various races. There were short Nylons, tall stone giants, and even some arthropods. They were all galactic residents from different star clusters. Some were hawking, some were discussing where to have fun, and the galactic translator allowed them to communicate with each other. There was a lot of noise, and it was a bustling galactic scene. It's so lively here. They're all neutral planets, so why is Floating Dragon so quiet? Aurora looked around curiously. Because Floating Dragon doesn't have any special industries, and it's not friendly to foreign financial groups. Han Xiao shook his head with a smile. Regions with beyond grade A supers were always very popular. Floating Dragon Island's poor management was completely due to a problem with their strategy. Ames did not want to develop it properly at all. Furthermore, in terms of territory, Planet Macipher was purely an industrial planet, while Floating Dragon Island was Ames' home. The management and openness of the two were different. With Sardine's strength, he was qualified to be a big boss. At the same time, he was a mechanic with superior technology and was good at attracting investors. Therefore, it was very easy for him to make a territory prosperous. At this time, the sound of an energy jet could be heard in the sky. The J-men looked up and saw a formation of mechanical guards flying over their heads. This was the armed force that Sardine used to maintain law and order, as well as his own mechanical army. Opening a neutral planet is quite profitable. Although my Black Star Corps is a higher-level organization, opening a neutral industrial planet doesn't seem like a bad idea. It can attract leaks. But I'll have to wait until the secret war is over. Han Xiao stroked his chin and thought about the expansion of the army's business. Black Star's identity was quite well known in the Shattered Star Ring. Luckily, he had disguised himself, so no one recognized him along the way. The group switched to a hovering vehicle and arrived at a shipyard in the center of the main city. This shipyard was extremely large and majestic. Han Xiao and the J-men stopped outside the gate and looked up at the floating signboard. Cornerstone Summit Corporation was written on it in the galactic language. This was one of the most reputable shipyards on planet Macipher. This is the place. Han Xiao nodded and turned on his communicator. On the screen was the recruitment notice for the Cornerstone Summit Corporation. For a mechanic to be recruited in such a large shipyard, the minimum requirement was to be grade C or have a mechanic technician certificate issued by a star system civilization. This was like the minimum education required by a company. Han Xiao did not have a mechanic's working certificate. That was something that only supers who specialized in research and lifestyle would need. In essence, it was for the convenience of those who did not like to fight and kill. He did not need to take such a test. Furthermore, with his grade, he did not even need to take the test to get the certificate. Supers had extraordinary strength. Some of them used this strength to carry out violence, such as galactic pirates, mercenaries, and bounty hunters. Others used this ability to produce. The 5 types of supers were also very important in the Galactic Society. Among them, the mechanic and mage classes were the most popular. Some espers with special abilities were also in good demand. Psychics were suitable for psychological adjustment, reconnaissance, and so on. Only pugilists had very bleak employment prospects because pugilists were the best at manual labor. Robots could also do this kind of work, and it was much cheaper. After all, who would hire pugilists to do manual labor? The J-men walked into the shipyard. There were many customers in the reception hall. They were all there to order spaceships and were using the self-service C-screen in the hall to browse the spaceship models they wanted. Han Xiao found an unoccupied buffet C-screen and pressed the manual F button. The next moment, the image of the buffet C-screen changed to that of a beautiful female receptionist. Hello, esteemed customer. Welcome to the Cornerstone Summit Corporation's Service F. How can I help you? I'm here to apply for a job as a mechanic. Han Xiao expressed his intention. His disguise was very effective, and he would not be recognized. "All right, please follow the reception robot. There will be people in charge of interviewing you to receive you." A white spherical robot the size of a palm flew over. It was wearing a pocket-sized receptionist uniform. It was very cute. It bowed and led the way in front. Along the way, they left the reception hall, passed through the outer factory area, and walked into a large workshop. Han Xiao immediately saw many low-grade mechanics working on lathes, assembling parts. This time, a well-dressed white-haired old man walked over. His hair was tied into a small braid at the back of his head, and he had a smile on his face. He looked very kind. "Hello, I'm a senior mechanical engineer from the Cornerstone Summit Corporation, Luke." "You're called Luke." Han Xiao could not help but size him up with a strange expression. Is there something wrong?" The white-haired old man had a suspicious look on his face. "Do you know me?" "It's nothing." Han Xiao coughed. "It's just that I have a friend with the same name as you." Haha, the translator basically transliterates names. The universe is so big, so it's normal for people with the same name to have the same name. Luke laughed and said, "How should I address you?" "Oh right, I have to make up a fake name." Han Xiao had a bad taste in his mouth. He coughed and smiled. "You can call me Barn." Luke felt that Han Xiao's smile had an indescribable strangeness to it, which made him a little scared. He could not help but feel nervous. There were quite a few mechanic-class galactic pirates and mercenaries on planet Macipher who became shipwright. Could it be that this guy named Barn was also a galactic pirate? Luke paused for a moment before bringing the topic back on track. "Our Cornerstone Summit Corporation is looking for mechanics on a long-term basis. You should have seen the requirements. What kind of test do you want to use? Do you want to show your mechanic technician certificate or test your grade?" "Test my grade." Luke nodded. He raised his hand and released a stream of mechanical force, grabbing the reception robot. The energy wave displayed at that moment was at grade B. He secretly sized up Han Xiao. Seeing that Han Xiao's expression did not change, he nodded. He pressed J on the reception robot, and a probe popped out from the robot's head. This was a device used to test one's energy rank. "You know how to use this, right?" "Just release a stream of mechanical force at the probe," Luke said. Han Xiao exhaled and carefully controlled the mechanical force in his body. He was afraid that too much S would reveal his grade A. A stream of mechanical force shot out from his fingertip and hit the probe. Luke looked at the test results and his expression changed. His tone became enthusiastic. "You're a grade B+ mechanic? Seems like it's still a little high." Han Xiao sighed. Grade B+ supers were basically the top talents that the shipyard could recruit. Grade A supers were not common. Although calamity grades were common in the Secret War, Grade A supers were rarely seen in the galaxy. It was even more impossible for them to come to an ordinary shipyard to apply for a job. "Do you need any more tests?" No need, no need. We will directly give you the position of senior engineer and pay. This is the treatment you deserve at your level." Luke was very enthusiastic. In the corporation, Grade B was the prerequisite to becoming a senior engineer. One would also need to accumulate contributions, but Grade B+ could directly become a senior engineer. "Please wait a moment. I'll get the upper echelons to discuss with you directly." Then, he turned around and reported the situation to the upper echelons. He then warmly brought Han Xiao to tour the various areas of the shipyard. Not long after, the upper echelons of the Cornerstone Summit Corporation arrived and sincerely discussed the benefit. Han Xiao was mainly there for the talent, and the two parties quickly signed a 2-year contract. There were also some clauses that stated that the blueprints could not be leaked. Of course, Han Xiao did not intend to abide by the contract. He signed the contract as Barn and was prepared to leave after obtaining the talent. Even if his real identity was exposed one day, with his position in the galaxy, How would a mere shipyard dare to hold him accountable for breaking the contract? Furthermore, he did not intend to harm the interests of others. He was a peak calamity grade super, so what were they going to do? After the contract was signed, Luke smiled and shook hands with Han Xiao. The Cornerstone Summit Corporation warmly welcomes you to join us. I wish us a happy cooperation. Han Xiao nodded and said, What project do I need to be in charge of? It's like this. The corporation recently received a high-level order from a huge customer. The other party provided the blueprints and requested that we build a rare battleship in batches. Our production line is unable to produce a portion of the parts that require high technology. The blueprints for these parts are extremely complicated, and only Grade B mechanics can learn how to build them. Thus, we used many senior engineers, but the progress is not ideal. I understand. My job is to build some parts. Han Xiao nodded. Yes, I'll first arrange your accommodation before giving you the blueprints for a portion of the parts. You should have 5 days of free time to learn the blueprints. After that, you can borrow the corporation's factory to build the parts. Every senior engineer has a mission quota, and since you're new to the project, the deadline might be a little tight, Luke explained. There's no need for 5 days. As long as you give me the blueprints, I'll be able to learn them in a second. Han Xiao shook his head and chuckled. Furthermore, with the manufacturing ability of a calamity grade, building spaceship parts in batches would be child's play. Engineer Mission Introduction. The first rule of a mechanic's work. A mechanic's career is incomplete if they do not cheat other people's resources for themselves. The mission has finally been triggered. Han Xiao was overjoyed. Although the name of this talent was a little lame, the effect was not bad. The number of talents that could strengthen one's main class had always been very high. He currently had a total of 13 mechanic talent. Energy modification, machinery analytical comprehension, virtual technology mastery, machinery theory summary, ordnance mass production, flexible weapon application, with super electromagnetic induction, basic mechanical sense. Assembly line manufacturing expert, advanced mechanical suit pilot, machinery truth mastery, mechanical force sublimation, apostle T. Most of them were obtained from his main class. The various mechanical specialties gave him a significant boost when stacked together. Many a little makes a mickle. For the next half of the day, Luke accompanied Han Xiao to understand the area of the shipyard. At night, his accommodation was finally arranged. He would be staying in a high-class dormitory within the corporation. Hela and the other two had been acting as his bodyguards, so they also moved in together. After the room was tidied up, Aurora could not help but ask, "Uncle, do you have some other motive for staying here to work?" Han Xiao was curious. "You actually want to steal the trade secrets and the blueprints here, right?" Aurora's tone was excited, and she had a "I guessed it right" expression on her face. "You're thinking too much. I don't need to do something so lame." Han Xiao smirked. "I can just buy whatever blueprints I want. I'm not poor." "Black Star, are we really going to stay here for 2 years?" Fu Ding suddenly asked. "Of course not. What are you thinking?" Han Xiao sighed helplessly. Fu Ding sighed. "We've been following you around for the past 3 months. You said that it was for a different life and to see more things, but I really can't think of how this will help you break through to beyond grade A." Han Xiao had no choice but to find an excuse. "I've been fighting for 7 years, and I haven't made any progress. Maybe if I relax, I'll gain something different." Fu Ding sighed. "In any case, you have to know that you don't have much time left. If you really can't break through, you have to make plans early. Whether it's to ask the Dragon Emperor for help or to escape from the Shattered Star Ring, you have to have a plan." "You make it sound like I'm about to die." "If only you were Logi." This time, the doorbell rang, and Luke walked in with a thick stack of blueprints. He placed them on the table, chatted casually, and left. These were the blueprints of the 3 component In order to prevent the technology of the entire spaceship from being leaked, every senior engineer had received the blueprints of different components and was responsible for the production of different parts. Han Xiao spent 10 seconds to quickly scan through the blueprint. The blueprints of the 3 components were recognized by the interface, and a skill was generated. He completely grasped them. The technology level of these 3 components is a little high. Normal spaceships don't need these 3 components. Only extremely large spaceships need them. Han Xiao was suddenly stunned. It seemed like only spaceships with star cluster level technology would need these 3 components, connecting all these factors. Could it be that the Cornerstone Summit Corporation had received an order to build a star cluster level flagship? Just like the Amethyst Civilization's star diamond level flagship? That was a manufacturing process that even star cluster level civilizations had to keep secret. Chapter 738. The next day Han Xiao arrived at the shipyard early in the morning and prepared to build the spaceship components that the corporation had given him. In order to keep it a secret, the blueprint of the spaceship would be split into various components for different senior engineers to build. The core components would be handled by the people under the corporation, and an external engineer like him would not be involved in such a large order. However, the Cornerstone Summit Corporation had considered the time limit and the fact that he was grade B+, so they could not wait to pull him into the plan. However, the blueprint of the core components would not be given to him. The 3 components that Han Xiao was in charge of had high technical requirements but were not crucial. As they were custom-made, the corporation did not have the corresponding production line, so the senior engineers came in handy. He originally did not plan to steal the blueprint, but if it was a star cluster flagship COF, how could a mechanics matter be considered stealing? He planned to use the virtual technology to let Philip infiltrate the database of the Cornerstone Summit Corporation and steal the basic framework of the star cluster flagship. The virtual security engineer hired by the Cornerstone Summit Corporation was like a little brother to him. How infuriating would it be if he could sneak into someone else's house like a thief and not be discovered? Most of the blueprints of the key components were stored in paper form. Although this method was primitive, it would never be outdated. After all, virtual mechanics were the missionaries of universal love and were notorious. No one would want their database to be spoiled by others every day. The Cornerstone Summit Corporation was in a rush, and his manufacturing speed was his advantage. As long as he completed the targets in his hands quickly, the corporation would give him more blueprints for him to manufacture. At the same time, he would also accumulate the progress of his talent mission. As long as he found a way to steal the remaining secret blueprints, he would be able to complete the blueprint of the Star Cluster flagship. When Han Xiao arrived at the work area of the senior engineers, he saw Luke immediately and greeted him. "Bane, why are you here?" Luke was a little surprised. "Why do you look so surprised?" Han Xiao raised his brows. "I thought that you would spend the entire day learning the blueprints. If you want to take a tour, I'll get someone else to bring you around. The schedule is a little tight, and I might not have time to do anything else." Luke thought that Han Xiao was still familiarizing himself with the future work environment. Han Xiao shook his head. "You misunderstood. I'm here to start work today." Hearing this, Luke's eyes widened. "You learned the blueprints I gave you in one night?" This efficiency was too high. He was in disbelief. These advanced spaceship components were extremely complicated, and he had spent 3 days to master them. In his opinion, Han Xiao would need at least 1 or 2 days to master them, but this new colleague had mastered them in one night? "If there's nothing else, I'm going back to work." Han Xiao saw Luke staring at him in a daze, so he reminded him. Luke came back to his senses and hurriedly replied, Okay, I won't disturb you anymore." Han Xiao nodded and swiped his card to enter the workshop. It was only when Han Zhao's back was blocked by the door of the private workshop that Luke retracted his gaze. He was secretly speechless. This new colleague named Barn was even more amazing than he had imagined. A senior engineer could use the Cornerstone Summit Corporation's high-end private workshop. Although it was not as luxurious as Han Zhao's private workshop in the Black Star Corps headquarters, it was still very expensive. After closing the door, Han Zhao was the only one left in the workshop. He sized up the workshop and nodded. They gave me half a month's time, and I should be able to complete it in half a day. This seems a little too exaggerated. Let's slow down and drag it out to 3 days. Clack! Han Zhao popped out a series of compressed orbs and formed all sorts of assistant robots. These were all mechanical products that he had personally created and modified. They were the exclusive equipment for peak-grade A+ mechanics and were extremely powerful. They were all private equipment that could not be bought on the market. Buzz! Mechanical force flowed out from his hands, and bright electric arcs connected to the machines. All the assistants started to move, and they used all sorts of equipment to process the materials. The huge experience pool gave him the confidence to ignore the soul embryo. While he was creating, he used the quantum matrix thought field to connect to the Cornerstone Summit Corporation's network and infiltrate the shipyard's database. Han Zhao's virtual technology could easily deal with the artificial intelligence of a normal shipyard. He easily hid his traces and bypassed the firewall and warning mechanism of the database. He allowed Philip to enter the database and copy the information. Let me take a look at what good stuff you have. Han Xiaoxin was overjoyed. Countless information appeared in his mind, and all the orders of the Cornerstone Summit Corporation were displayed in his mind. After sifting through a large amount of redundant information, Han Zhao found some valuable information. The database would not store spaceship blueprints that were too valuable. Normally, there would be a warehouse specially built to store the blueprints. However, the 2D map of the shipyard did not indicate where the warehouse was, so Han Zhao did not know where it was. The blueprints stored in the database were all relatively ordinary spaceship blueprints, and Han Zhao did not reject any of them. He learned everything he could. No matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Furthermore, he had the talent research theory, which gave him 1 intelligence point for every 3 skills. The more blueprints he had, the better. After searching for a while, Han Zhao finally found the information he wanted. It was the Cornerstone Summit Corporation's current large order. Eternal Light Fortress Battleship? Han Zhao was stunned. This flagship model was too famous. It was not the product of any star cluster civilization in the Shattered Star Ring, but one of the flagship models of the Radiant Federation. Although Eternal Light was not the trump card flagship of a universal civilization, it was one of the main battleships of the Radiant Federation fleet. Its strength was comparable to the flagship of a star cluster civilization, and it was even slightly stronger in terms of energy. Furthermore, the cost of manufacturing it was much lower. It was one of the flagship models of the Radiant Federation that had the lowest technical requirement. The blueprints of the battleships of the Radiant Federation were priceless on the black market, and an ordinary shipyard in the Shattered Star Ring was actually building a high-level flagship of a universal civilization. There seems to be something fishy behind this. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled, and he could not help but imagine. The Radiant Federation secretly hired a local shipyard in the Shattered Star Ring to build a battleship because they want to station troops in this star field. Could it be that they are planning something big? If that's the case, the Cornerstone Summit Corporation is definitely not the only shipyard building the Radiant Federation battleship. That's not right. The Radiant Federation has their own secret military factory in the Shattered Star Ring, so there's no need for them to outsource their business. Furthermore, their goal in the Shattered Star Ring is to fight with the Red Empire. Could it be that the negotiation was just a pretense, and they want to take over the flickering world by force? That doesn't seem like it. Furthermore, there was no such storyline in the past. If the Radiant Federation really wanted to do that, they would have sent an army over a long time ago. After thinking for a while, Han Shao had a more reliable guess. This matter should have nothing to do with the Radiant Federation. Someone might have obtained the blueprint of eternal light from some channel and then ordered the Cornerstone Summit Corporation to build it for them. If that was the case, this huge customer was either someone close to the Cornerstone Summit Corporation or someone they could not afford to offend. Otherwise, they would not have casually provided such a valuable blueprint to an outsider. This means that stealing the blueprint might be more difficult than I thought. I might even offend some powerful organizations. Han Zhao's brows furrowed slightly before relaxing. I'm now Bane, not Black Star. What does Bane stealing the blueprint have to do with me, Black Star? I'll just steal it. The blueprint of the Eternal Light Fortress was stored in the database. The framework referred to the structure of the ship and the exterior armor. Just like the shell of a carrier, it was equivalent to the skeleton and skin of the spaceship. Because the framework of such a large flagship would usually be built in outer space, the difficulty of the project was relatively high. Thus, the blueprint had to be stored in the database. The components of the spaceship were the core, such as the energy furnace, shield generator, hyperdrive engine, and so on. These components were the organs of the spaceship and were more important than the framework. You have received Battleship Blueprint Eternal Light, incomplete. It's fine if it's incomplete. I'll try my best to steal the complete blueprint. Han Xiaoxin chuckled. For the next 10 days, Han Shao stayed in the shipyard and focused on building the spaceship component. The progress of his engineer mission increased steadily. He completed the first batch of targets in 3 days, which shocked the upper echelons of the corporation. After checking that there were no problems with the quality of the components, the upper echelons felt that they had recruited a treasure. They gave Han Shao a few more blueprints for him to build, and he completed them in less than 2 days. The upper echelons of the corporation handed Han Shao more blueprints, and they were all completed quickly. However, the upper echelons were in a dilemma. Han Zhao's efficiency had exceeded their expectations, and it had created trouble for them. If this carried on, this new Bane would no more blueprints, and it would not be in line with the original intention of splitting the spaceship blueprints to share the risk. Just as the upper echelons were in a dilemma, the boss of the corporation came to inspect. In the meeting room, Sardim flipped through the most recent report of the Cornerstone Summit Corporation. He glanced at the upper echelons of the corporation and said calmly, "I'm very disappointed. I'm a little disappointed in your efficiency. Why hasn't eternal light been created yet? Your Excellency Sardim, this is the flagship model of a universal civilization. With our technology reserves, we really can't build a high-level flagship quickly. Furthermore, the engineers in the corporation are only grade B+ at most. The production rate of those high-level components is too low." "Oh?" Sardim narrowed his eyes. "I suspect that you're putting your focus on the sales of the shipyard and only want to complete the orders from the outside world. You don't want to work for me for free? You're mistaken. We don't have such thoughts." The upper echelon's expressions changed, and they hurriedly explained. Although they were the upper echelons of the corporation, Sardim was the boss. The Cornerstone Summit Corporation was under Sardim's name. Apart from accepting orders from the outside world, their other responsibility was to produce machines for him. All production resources had to be put into the manufacturing missions given by Sardim first. If Sardim was the king of planet Macipher, then the Cornerstone Summit Corporation was a state-owned enterprise. As long as Sardim wanted to, he could take back the authority of these upper echelons. Building the Eternal Light spaceship was the mission target that Sardim had given to the Cornerstone Summit Corporation. This blueprint belonged to him. "Don't forget whose subordinates you are," Sardim said. "I'll give you 4 more months. if you still can't complete eternal light. Sardim said calmly. The upper echelons hurriedly expressed their loyalty. Don't worry, we'll definitely be able to build it. Sardim nodded. After looking at the report for a while, he suddenly asked, Did you guys hire a new senior engineer recently? Yes, his name is Bane. Sardim pointed at the data on the report. Even if he's grade B+, it's rare for him to be so efficient. There are two possibilities. He might have outstanding mechanic talent and the potential to become a calamity grade, or he's hiding his strength for some reason. The upper echelons were shocked. Then what should we do? You don't have to worry about this. Sardim waved his hands and revealed an interested expression. If he's the former, I'm interested in taking in a disciple with good potential. If he's the latter, it might be even better. The upper echelons exchanged looks. Then, how should we arrange his work? Should we let him continue to participate in the construction of the eternal light? With his efficiency, he'll learn the blueprints of a large number of components. Sardim's lips curled up. We only need to protect the blueprints of the core component. Don't worry about leaking the rest. All right. The upper echelons did not dare refute. Sardim stood up and said, Let's observe him for a while. I'll find a time to interact with him. I feel that he'll be an interesting fellow. The galaxy was vast, and the universe was boundless. The shattered star ring was at the edge of the explored universe. This star field was divided into more than 10 star clusters, and there were thousands of star systems. Among these star systems, the Eternal Night star system was the most special one. That was because this star system was nurturing the next star cluster civilization. Under the leadership of a great man, their civilization rose at an astonishing speed, and their race evolved in an unbelievable way. This race remembered the glory of their leader and changed their name. Now, they called themselves the Star Pupil God Race. Cisco was the leader of this civilization. Chapter 739. Eternal Night Star System, Planet Avitan. This planet was not the home planet of the star pupil Protoss, but a rather prosperous and important administrative planet. It was considered a first-tier colonial planet of the entire civilization, and its location was excellent. It was similar to a trading port and an important economic center. There were more than 12 billion permanent residents, and a huge number of foreigners were coming in every day. In a certain main city of planet Avitan, a floating vehicle shuttled between the skyscrapers. The star pupil Protoss, who were born with the ability to fly, followed the flight path of the transportation plan. The city was prosperous and peaceful. However, on this day, the peace of planet Avitan was broken. A black and red meteorite suddenly appeared outside the atmosphere, and the observation radar did not detect the trajectory of this meteorite at all. It was as though it had appeared out of thin air. The meteorite was falling at an extremely fast speed toward this main city, leaving very little time for the fleet stationed on planet Avitan to react. Countless fully automated planetary air defense arrays in the atmosphere quickly reacted, releasing a huge amount of dark energy and forming an outer orbit capture net that stretched for hundreds of miles, blocking the path of the meteorite. This kind of device was usually used to capture meteorite. The dark energy was almost tangible, and it had extremely strong elasticity, toughness, and ductility. It could use the tens of thousands of meters between the atmosphere and the ground as a buffer zone to cover the meteorite and eliminate its kinetic energy. However, the meteorite directly pierced through the outer orbit capture net like a knife cutting through silk. The planetary air defense arrays immediately carried out the second plan, shooting out countless tracking annihilation rays, preparing to intercept the meteorite in the sky and turn it into dust. However, the annihilation rays also failed. The meteorite seemed indestructible, and at the same time, it had some kind of anti-targeting ability, misleading the radar's judgment, and a large number of annihilation rays missed. Looking up from the ground, One could see a large number of annihilation rays melting the air, forming strange black spots. Woo woo woo. At the same time, the entire city where the meteorite was falling sounded an air raid alarm. Countless underground shelter entrances appeared on the surface of the city, and a large number of citizens hid in the underground shelters nearby. The streets quickly became deserted and empty. At this time, the city also activated a super-large protective shield, protecting the entire city, preparing to withstand the impact of the meteorite's fall. Tens of thousands of anti-aircraft dark energy cannons extended from the ground at the edge of the city. They opened fire and fired in unison toward the sky. It was as if black rain was pouring down from the ground. Outside the protective shield of the city, the Calamity-grade star pupil Protoss, who was guarding this city, floated in midair. The black and red meteorite wrapped in dense flames, it rapidly enlarged in his blue eyes. The flames are too thick, and I can't see the appearance of this meteorite clearly. It's about to fall, I have to intercept it. This guardian was a Calamity-grade psychic. He looked up at the meteorite that was falling and crazily released his psychic energy, superimposing it in front of the meteorite, hoping to stop it or make it deviate from its trajectory. However, he was shocked to find that once his psychokinesis came into contact with the meteorite, it would automatically dissipate. It could not form an obstruction at all. What the hell is this thing? In the next second, the meteorite suddenly accelerated and crashed through the city's protective shield, landing in the center of the city. Bang! A crater hundreds of meters long appeared on the ground. The tornado-like flames quickly dissipated, revealing the full appearance of the meteorite. It was a dark, human-shaped creature that seemed to be made of mist. Black smoke was popping up all over its body. It did not have any facial features. Its face was a swirl with a red spot of light at the center, as if that was its core. It was God's doppelganger. The satellites of planet Avitan were watching from high up in the sky, broadcasting the situation to the other cities on the planet. The actions of God's doppelganger were seen by billions of people. The garrison of planet Avitan had already sensed that something was wrong. The city guardian wanted to surround God's doppelganger with the supers, and the garrison fleet was also on the move. Spaceships that looked like shuttles quickly gathered, and more than half of the armed forces of planet Avitan were rushing to the city that was being attacked. However, the next moment, the actions of God's doppelganger caused a global panic. He opened his arms, and his energy level increased rapidly. The terrifying energy gathered like a supernova that was about to explode. The next moment, the intense light made all the people of planet Avitan close their eyes. Then, the radiation interference forcefully cut off the satellite's observation. However, even without the broadcast, the people of planet Avitan could feel it. The ground beneath their feet shook. A black and red energy ball with God's doppelganger as the center expanded rapidly, swallowing the entire city. Looking down from outer space, it looked like a black pimple had grown on the ground. The energy ball expanded to cover the entire city and seemed to have expanded to its limit. At this time, the energy ball suddenly separated into two layers of energy. The outer layer of energy decayed, its color becoming lighter, maintaining its original size, while the inner layer began to shrink rapidly. It looked like a large, light black hemisphere covering a small, dark red hemisphere. When the inner layer shrunk to half of its original size, the entire energy ball seemed to have lost its balance. Be it the inner layer or the outer layer, they all exploded, turning into radioactive, explosive energy. The shock wave swept through everything. Boom! The earth was wailing, and a huge rift valley was born from this city. Be it the city guards, the ground troops, or all the people in the underground sanctuary, they were all turned into dust in this destructive explosion. It was like the end of the world. After who knew how long, the aftermath of the explosion finally ended. This main city was wiped off the map and no longer existed. All the tall buildings were flattened, and only a huge crater and a huge rift valley were left. There was not a single person left alive in the entire city. God's doppelganger slowly flew up from the bottom of the crater, rushing out of the dust and exposing himself to the satellite. He paused in midair for a while before suddenly flying in a certain direction, which was the location of another city. The satellite broadcast recovered, and everyone on planet Avitan saw this scene. Everyone seemed to have forgotten how to breathe. Endless panic gripped everyone's heart. Just a few minutes after the big explosion, every news channel of the star pupil Protoss immediately broadcast emergency news, broadcasting what had happened on planet Avitan to the entire civilization. At the same time, a fleet surrounded Cisco's spaceship and set off from the mother planet of the star pupil Protoss to reinforce planet Avitan. 3 Light Fox spaceships that maintained stealth mode were quietly floating not far away from the mother planet of the star pupil Protoss. Cisco is on the move. The first step is a success. Colin revealed a ferocious smile and clenched his fists in excitement. Cisco guarded the mother planet all year round, and the evolution cube was stored on the mother planet. Only by luring Cisco away would they have a chance to steal the evolution cube. Cisco's weakness was that he valued his race. As long as he placed a beyond grade A God doppelganger on an important colonial planet and massacred the star pupil Protoss, Cisco would definitely leave the mother planet to reinforce them. This was an open scheme to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Unless Cisco did not care about the lives of the people on that planet, he had no other choice. God had given his first doppelganger an extremely destructive Esper ability. God could create countless doppelgangers, but it was not without limitations. Although he had countless Esper abilities, his doppelgangers could not use all of them. Only when his main body gave his Esper abilities to his doppelganger would the doppelganger have these abilities. His main body could not use the Esper abilities he had given to his doppelganger until the doppelganger was destroyed or removed. For example, if he gave 10 Esper abilities to his doppelganger, these 10 Esper abilities would be temporarily frozen and could not be used by his main body. Furthermore, he could not give them to his second doppelganger. Simply put, different individuals could not use the same Esper ability at the same time. Therefore, God did not stop collecting Esper abilities, even those that were repeated, just to create a super high-risk Esper ability list. When Cisco arrives on planet Avitan, it will be time for us to take action. Orozen chuckled. Colin nodded, looked at the second God doppelganger beside him, and said, "Your Excellency God, please wait for a while. We will take action when the time is right." The second God doppelganger nodded. This doppelganger was controlled by the main body, and the main body's consciousness was projected here. Colin and the others were communicating directly with God, who was far away in the central galaxy. This second doppelganger was given many Esper abilities, such as invisibility, regional teleportation, and shielding from detection. He had been using his Esper abilities to hide everyone's traces and used his psychic Esper ability to shield Cisco's psychic senses that covered the entire mother planet. This was why they were able to hide under Cisco's nose and stay near the mother planet without being discovered. The main force of stealing the evolution cube was this second God doppelganger. Only he could silently send Colin and the others to the storage location of the evolution cube. As for the third doppelganger, he had been lying in ambush on planet Avitan. His mission was to cooperate with the first doppelganger to stall Cisco. The abilities of the third doppelganger were all control-type Esper abilities. Although the doppelganger had the strength of a beyond grade A, it was still a doppelganger and was not Cisco's match. With just one doppelganger, he would not be able to hold on for long. Only with two doppelganger working together would they be able to stall Cisco long enough to prevent him from rushing back to the mother planet. As for ES-God's confidence in stealing the evolution cube, it was because he had the only detailed information about the evolution cube. The evolution cube was not a small item. Without a manual, no one would know how to carry the evolution cube around. It's not that I don't want to, but I really can't. Writing speed is also a talent, and I've put 2 little points into this aspect. When it comes to the middle of the plot, there are more things to consider, and it's hard for me to increase my speed. I'm not like other authors who use an extra update mechanism because I know that I can't keep up. Ever since I hit my head last October, my attention has been easily distracted, and my brain speed has slowed down. I also want to write more, and the faster I write, the better I get. Although I'm not a perfectionist, I don't allow myself to be reckless. I can only try my best to write more on the basis of not deviating from the plot. Let's see if I can save some and release them at the same time. Big brother, please pat me lightly, I'm already lying down. Chapter 740. When the reinforcements led by Cisco arrived on planet Avitan, the first ES-God doppelganger had already destroyed more than 20 cities, causing heavy casualties. At this time, it was still causing trouble on the planet, giving the surface of planet Avitan a makeover. The hyperdrive streamer formed by the mother planet fleet dragged a long flame tail and stopped in the outer space of planet Avitan. Cisco flew out of his spaceship and floated at the front of the fleet. Looking down at the messy surface of the planet, his eyes were filled with endless anger. A normal star pupil Protoss had 4 arms and 3 eyes. Their skin was a smooth dark blue, and their internal organs were very different from humans. They had 2 brains and 5 hearts, but they did not have any fatal spots. Under the influence of the evolution cube, their genes were excellent and their bones, muscles, and blood vessels were all optimized. Although they were not a rare species in the universe, normal star pupil Protoss could still barely survive in the universe with their physical bodies. Cisco's appearance was very different from his race. He had awakened the atavistic genes, and his appearance was even more ferocious. He had 7 eyes on his face, and 6 of them were in the shape of a rhombus, surrounding the largest main eye in the middle. His pupil was like a black gem, flashing with endless stars as if it contained a galaxy. He had thick white hair, but it was not real hair but countless hair-like sensory tentacles. A pair of straight white jade horns grew in front of his forehead, and his shoulders, chest, elbows, knees, back, and other parts were covered with natural white exoskeleton, like a simple bone armor. His dark blue skin was filled with dark purple strange patterns, and 3 pairs of bone limbs that looked like pipes grew out of his back. When they were opened, they looked like wing bones without wing membranes. Of course, as the leader of a civilization, Cisco did not have the habit of running around naked. He wore a custom-made luxurious robe. The next moment, Cisco dove toward the surface. The first ES-God doppelganger noticed, and stopped in a wasteland, looking up at Cisco landing in front of him. ES-God, I know you can hear me. You threw your doppelganger into my territory. Do you want to be my enemy? Cisco's tone was cold. He had traveled to other star fields before and knew the names of all the beyond grade as in the galaxy. He had long recognized that this was ES-God's doppelganger. The red dot on ES-God doppelganger's face lit up, and his main body's consciousness descended. He controlled the doppelganger to communicate telepathically and said with a faint smile, "You know why I'm here. Do you think that as long as you lure me out, you can definitely snatch my treasures?" Cisco said coldly, directly exposing ES-God's intentions. He was the leader of a civilization, so his reaction was naturally not slow. A notorious beyond grade A bruiser in the central galaxy had suddenly appeared in the shattered star ring and wreaked havoc in his territory. It was definitely not for fun. The evolution cube in his hands was coveted by countless people. When Cisco saw the news on his mother planet, he immediately understood Esgod's intentions. Esgod could only be here for the evolution cube. However, even though he knew that this was a plan to lure him away, he had no other choice. If he did not come, no one would be able to stop the beyond grade A Esgod doppelganger from destroying planet Avitan. No matter how strong a person is, as long as they have something to worry about, they will always have a weakness. Esgod doppelganger chuckled. Without something worth persevering for, what's the point of being strong? Cisco's 7 eyes narrowed at the same time, and his psychic energy surged into the sky. His voice became grand, solemn, and ancient, as though it filled the entire world. I indeed can't ignore your trap, but as long as I get rid of you quickly, there's no point in luring me away. Rumble. As soon as he said that, Esgod doppelganger punched out with both fists, shooting out black and red energy waves that could destroy the world. The ground cracked, and the continent that was riddled with holes began to tremble violently, gradually tearing apart. Esper ability, dark energy destruction. Cisco ignored the energy waves that were approaching him like a tsunami. His 7 eyes shot out light at the same time, and an invisible psychic energy surged up, turning into countless needles that faced the incoming energy waves. Boom! The energy wave exploded like firework. Although it was dazzling, it was filled with great danger. The scattered energy wave dug out ravines on the ground. Wherever it passed, even the soil was annihilated into powder. Chi. The psychic energy pierced through the dark energy destruction and struck Esgod doppelganger. His body suddenly exploded, scattering into black fog. Within the black fog there was a red dot flickering. This was the core of Esgod's doppelganger. The next moment, the black fog condensed back into the red dot, turning back into the doppelganger's appearance, but it was much thinner. Cisco's psychic energy was just enough to deal the greatest damage to the core of Esgod's doppelganger. Even Esgod's doppelganger would not be able to withstand the power of a beyond grade A, not to mention that he had already exhausted a lot of energy. Boom boom boom. The moment the two of them exchanged blows, it was as though lightning had struck the earth. The battle between beyond grade As was extremely intense, mainly because Esgod's doppelganger did not care about the damage he would cause. It was as though he had pulled out the plug of a reservoir, causing energy to gush out like a flood. However, Cisco's ability would not cause too much of a shockwave. Although Esgod's doppelganger looked powerful, he was actually not Cisco's opponent at all. After all, it was just a doppelganger and could not compare to a true beyond grade A with a full set of abilities and talent. Bang! After a few minutes of intense battle, Esgod's first doppelganger was once again destroyed and barely managed to condense. It was almost unable to maintain the doppelganger's form, and the red dot core flickered as though it would extinguish at any moment. Just as Cisco was about to chase after Esgod and destroy this doppelganger, he suddenly sensed the appearance of a new beyond grade A energy source, and he immediately looked up at the sky. Just a moment ago, Esgod's third doppelganger, which had been lying in ambush outside planet Avitan for a long time, finally appeared and was wantonly attacking the support fleet outside the atmosphere. With just one doppelganger, I won't be able to stop you. Esgod's main consciousness controlled Esgod's first doppelganger to speak. However, if there are two of us, it won't be a problem to hold you back for a short period of time. After destroying your fleet, you won't be able to return to your mother planet quickly without a ride. You talk too much nonsense. Cisco's eyes narrowed, and he did not want to waste time talking. He directly used his psychic energy to press Esgod's doppelganger onto the ground. In truth, Cisco was not too worried. He was not too worried about the evolution cube being stolen. He felt that Esgod only knew that the evolution cube was a universal treasure, but most likely did not know what the evolution cube was. The evolution cube was very strange, and its size was huge. He had studied it for so long but still could not carry it around. Unless he snatched it by force, it would not be possible for it to be stolen. He dared to leave his mother planet temporarily to provide support because he was confident in this aspect. Of course, Cisco did not know ES-God's true trump card. Star Pupil God Race's mother planet. While Cisco was being held back by the two doppelganger, ES-God's second doppelganger finally moved. Using its regional teleportation ability, it brought Colin, Orozen, and the others to the location where the evolution cube was stored. Strong light. Extremely dazzling light. When everyone gradually adapted to the dazzling light around them, they sized up their surroundings. This was a strange space, filled with white, sticky liquid all around them, isolated by the light green shield released by ES-God's second doppelganger. What is this place? Orozen was curious. The outer layer of the Star Pupil God Race's mother planet, ES-God's second doppelganger said calmly. The evolution cube was hidden by Cisco in the core layer of his mother planet and covered by Cisco's psychic barrier, blocking most detection and sensing abilities. If not for the evolutionary civilization recording the method to locate the evolution cube, ES-God's doppelganger would not have been able to directly teleport to the destination. ES-God's second doppelganger identified it and used its psychic esper ability to dissolve the barrier left by Cisco. The next moment, a gigantic metallic object appeared before everyone's eyes. They did not know how big this object was. They only knew that they could only see one side of the evolution cube and could not see the end of this side. This thing is too big. Colin's pupils constricted. Orozen's face was filled with curiosity. He reached out to touch the evolution cube but did not touch its physical body. His hand reached into the cube without any hindrance, as if the evolution cube was just a projection without a physical body. The physical form of the evolution cube was very strange. It was between matter and energy, and could not be touched through normal means. According to the data, as long as one walks into the evolution cube, they will evolve inside. This is the simplest way to use it. Orozen was tempted. Colin was also tempted, but he still remembered the mission and said, "Don't waste time. Quickly use the device to contain it." Everyone hurriedly took out a palm-sized silver cube and handed it to Colin. This was a supporting device for the evolution cube that ES-God had built based on the information left behind by the evolutionary civilization. It was like a container for storing water, and its only use was to store the huge evolution cube so that it could be carried around. This was a special technology of the evolutionary civilization that had been lost for a long time. Only ES-God, who had the data of this civilization, could create such a device. Without this device, it would have been almost impossible to steal the evolution cube. Colin raised the silver cube and activated it. Ding! The silver cube suddenly lit up with a gentle light. The huge evolution cube seemed to have sensed something and shook violently, producing some kind of particle resonance on its surface. The next moment, a black ray of light suddenly shot out from the surface of the evolution cube that was facing everyone, connecting to the silver cube like a pipe. Then, the evolution cube started to turn itself into a pure energy form and slowly stuffed itself into the silver cube along the pipe. It was as if it had finally found its home. The size of the evolution cube in the outside world gradually shrank, and the silver cube seemed to have a straw inserted into it, drinking the evolution cube leisurely. Seeing that the device was working correctly, Colin heaved a sigh of relief. The containment process will take a few minutes. We have plenty of time. As soon as he said that, dense white light clusters suddenly appeared at the end of their vision and rushed toward them. If not for the fact that they were all supers with outstanding eyesight, they would not have been able to notice these inconspicuous light clusters in the bright light. What are those light clusters? Colin's expression changed, and a huge sense of danger appeared in his heart. The ES God doppelganger suddenly spoke. Cisco indeed had a backup plan. These are all his psychic energy. Every light cluster is equivalent to a beyond grade a psychic attack. This is a method used to protect the evolution cube and will attack all intruders. You guys focus on containing the evolution cube. I'll block these psychic attacks. The power of each of these active psychic energy light balls was equivalent to the one-time psychic weapon that Han Shao had endured before. At this moment, more and more light balls appeared continuously, swarming toward this group of people as if there was no end to them. The ES God doppelganger opened an invisible mental shield and covered everyone. Bang, bang, bang. The activated psychic light balls crashed into the shield one after another. It was like a rainstorm hitting the surface of a lake. Countless ripples appeared on the surface of the shield. The red dot core of the ES God doppelganger dimmed at a visible speed. Enduring so many beyond grade psychic attacks, his energy was being consumed rapidly. Hurry up, hurry up! Everyone was extremely anxious and stared at the silver cube slowly absorbing the evolution cube like a straw drinking milk. They could not wait to squeeze the evolution cube into a ball and stuff it directly into the cube. They were very clear that once the ES God doppelganger could not hold on, they would be dead for sure. The waiting time felt like years. Thankfully, although the evolution cube's physical form was weird, it was still a whole. When the silver cube absorbed enough of the evolution cube's volume, it began to have a huge attractive force toward the rest of the cube, and the absorption speed skyrocketed. Finally, the last bit of the evolution cube turned into energy and was stuffed into the silver cube. The absorption was finally complete, and the silver cube turned black. This was the complete evolution cube. It's done, Colin hurriedly shouted. Go. The ES God doppelganger could no longer hold on and used the last of his energy to teleport Colin and the others back to the spaceship. He then hurriedly cut off the teleportation gate. The next moment, this doppelganger could no longer maintain the shield and was drowned by the endless psychic energy light clusters, directly exploding. However, his mission had been completed, which was to protect his subordinates until they stole the evolution cube. The doppelganger's energy was limited, and he could only rely on these subordinates to cross the desolate universe belt and bring the item back to the fallen Arkansas. ES God's main body did not dare leave the central galaxy casually. The three universal civilizations were watching him, and if his main body moved, he would not be able to hide this operation, which would become even more troublesome. Colin and the others were teleported back to the spaceship, and before they could say anything, their attention was attracted by the buzzing alarm of the spaceship. *T, our spaceship has been discovered. The star pupil mother planet has sent a fleet to attack us. Everyone's expression changed. The three Light Fox spaceships were surrounded by a large number of star pupil battleships, and their shields were being baptized by the light cannons. When they stole the evolution cube, Cisco had already sensed it and hurriedly ordered the army stationed on the mother planet to search the surrounding space. As the ES God doppelganger was destroyed, the three spaceships lost their concealment shield and were finally discovered by the star pupil god race. They were immediately surrounded and attacked. Run! Colin did not have the time to observe the evolution cube and hurriedly piloted the spaceship to avoid the attack. The three spaceships fled in different directions, and very soon, one of them was destroyed in midair. The remaining two spaceships relied on their powerful engines to escape at the last moment. The hull of the spaceship was severely damaged, and the exterior armor was damaged everywhere. Colin panted heavily, and only when he entered hyperdrive mode did his tense body relax. We escaped. With our speed, the enemy won't be able to catch up, Colin said in a low voice. Activate the spaceship self-check and calculate the damage, Colin said with a deep voice. The spaceship's artificial intelligence replied intermittently. Buzz self-check. Hull damage 63%, shield generator close to destruction, energy furnace moderately damaged, power output reduced by 42%. Buzz. Cluster thrusters 38% damaged, 4th and 6th engines close to destruction, automatic repair equipment malfunctioning. Immediate repair of the spaceship is recommended. With the current state of the spaceship, it will not be able to support long hyperdrive. Orozen clenched his teeth. Stealing something from a beyond grade A, how exciting! No matter what, the item is already in our hands. Colin glanced at the palm-sized evolution cube and said, "The spaceship is unable to cross star fields in its current state. We just have to find a safe place to repair the spaceship, and we can return to complete our mission." I know a planet where spaceships can be repaired. It's not controlled by any civilization and is very safe. Furthermore, it's at the edge of the shattered star ring. As long as the spaceship is repaired there, we can leave this star field. I escaped from the shattered star ring from there 60 years ago, Orozen said. Hearing the name of that planet, Colin checked the star map and nodded. Okay, that place is very far from the star pupil god race. We can use our speed to shake off the pursuers for a long time and buy enough time for us to repair the spaceship. They would only dare to cross star fields after repairing the spaceship. Otherwise, if the spaceship malfunctioned in the desolate universe belt between star fields, they would be in dire straits. This light fox spaceship immediately changed direction, turning into a stream of light and disappearing on the other side of the universe. Planet Avitan. The last ES-God doppelganger was destroyed and turned into a cloud of black mist. Cisco retracted his psychic energy, brushed the dust off his clothes, and looked up at the sky with a solemn expression. He really stole the evolution cube. I didn't expect ES-God to have detailed information about the evolution cube. I miscalculated. The 3 ES-God doppelgangers were equivalent to 3 beyond grade as working together, and he was only one person, so it was understandable that ES-God had succeeded. This was also why ES-God was so troublesome. However, Cisco was very calm and did not panic. He narrowed his eyes and muttered, "Although you succeeded, don't think that you can take the evolution cube away from me so easily." Although Cisco did not have the manual for the evolution cube, he had the evolution cube for so long and had some result. Just like how Austin had control over the Palace of Hidden Spells, Cisco had guarded the evolution cube for so many years and had almost turned it into his own magic treasure. He had formed a mental connection with the evolution cube, so even if the evolution cube was not by his side, he could use it to increase his psychic energy. At the same time, he had left a mark on the evolution cube, so even if it was far away, he could sense its location. In his senses, the coordinates of the evolution cube were moving rapidly, marking the coordinates of Colin and the others. Want to run after stealing? Not so easy. Cisco tapped his forehead and sent a telepathic message to his subordinate. Prepare the fastest spaceship for me. I'll chase after those thieves. Genius remembered the address of this station in 1 second. Chapter 741. Planet Macipher, Cornerstone Summit Corporation. Han Shao had been working there for more than 20 days, and his name had spread among the senior engineers of the corporation. Now, the entire corporation knew that a very high-standard mechanic had joined them. In less than a month, he had completed more than 10 times the workload of a normal senior engineer. Because the boss had spoken, the upper echelons of the corporation did not care about keeping the blueprints a secret anymore. They boldly used Bane and increased his mission quota, allowing Han Shao to obtain more blueprints of eternal light. That engineer mission had been completed, and he had obtained the skilled technician talent. The effect was that the attributes of the mechanical equipment he created would be slightly increased between 8% to 14%. The production speed would be increased by 22%, and the cost would be reduced by 6%. With the talent in his hands, Han Shao only had one goal left in the Cornerstone Summit Corporation, and that was to learn the blueprints of eternal light. Because the corporation had put him in an important position, Han Shao had learned quite a lot of blueprints. As for the blueprints in the hands of the other senior engineers, he had used his virtual technology to hack into the artificial intelligence of these Grade B mechanics and obtain their communicators, mechanical assistants, and so on. When these senior engineers looked at the blueprints, Philip would grab the surveillance footage and copy the blueprints. As for the blueprints that he could not steal, Han Shao would visit the other senior engineers. He only needed to look at the blueprints for a short while before he could generate a skill through the interface to make up for the incomplete blueprints of eternal light. It was a pity that due to his race evolution, the observer's marked talent that allowed him to steal information was gone. If not, it would be even easier to steal the blueprints. Han Shao missed the void peeping technique. In half a month, Han Shao had collected most of the blueprints for the components of eternal light. Only the core blueprints were left, and they were all closely guarded by the core engineers of the corporation. Han Shao did not have the chance to come into contact with them at all. He had been thinking about how to obtain the core blueprints. During this time, the players had also received all the EXP they had spent in the faction store, and his EXP storage had increased by a large amount. In the workshop, Han Shao looked at his attributes on the interface and calculated his EXP while completing his work for the day. With the amount of EXP I've accumulated, I should be able to reach level 238 or 239. I'm only one step away from level 240. I should be able to reach that level in 3 or 4 days. Han Shao was secretly excited. A beyond grade A super was like a carp leaping through the dragon gate. Even in the entire galaxy, a beyond grade A super would be a well-deserved big shot. Even the universal civilizations would have to take them seriously. Once he succeeded, he would be able to obtain a seat at the top of the star field, and the Black Star Corps would become a true beyond grade A organization because of him. It could be said that when a man achieves the Tao, his fowls and dogs ascend to heaven as well. After looking forward to it for a while, Han Shao looked at the time. It was already lunch break, so he stopped working, called back all the manufacturing assistants, and prepared to go for lunch. As soon as he walked out of the workshop, Han Shao found Luke standing outside the door. "Bane, I need to talk to you about something," Luke called out to Han Shao. "What are you doing? Do you want to eat with me?" Han Shao stopped and looked curiously at the old gentleman. Luke smiled and shook his head. "I'm more than happy to rest with you, but I'm looking for you for something else. The true leader of the corporation wants to see you." "The true leader of the corporation?" Han Shao raised his brows. "All right, lead the way." Luke extended his hand and made a please gesture, leading Han Shao all the way to the core office area of the corporation. After walking for about 10 minutes, the two of them arrived at the top floor of a tall building and entered a spacious office. There was a person sitting on a chair in the room with the back of the chair facing the door. Han Shao could only see the back of his head at first glance. This familiar domineering CEO style. Han Zhao's eyes twitched, and he resisted the urge to complain. Luke left and closed the door. Only Han Shao and this so-called true leader of the corporation were left in the room. This time, this person spoke with his back facing Han Shao. "Bane, that's not your real name, right?" As he spoke, this person turned around and faced Han Shao. After seeing the other party's face, Han Shao was stunned for a moment before coming to a realization. It's actually Sardim. This makes sense. As the owner of Planet Macipher, Sardim controlled many industries. It was not too surprising that the Cornerstone Summit Corporation belonged to him. In his previous life, the players only knew that working in the Cornerstone Summit Corporation would reward talents, and any mechanic could do this mission. However, with the strength of the players back then, they would not be able to get too close to the core of the corporation. The Cornerstone Summit Corporation was just an insignificant side quest in the eyes of the players, and there were no clues worth digging into. Therefore, the players did not know that the owner of this shipyard was Sardim. However, this was not difficult to guess. This means that the Eternal Light blueprint belongs to Sardim. I wonder why he's suddenly looking for me. Could it be that he saw through my identity? Han Xiaoxin thought. He was not afraid. Although the other party was also a grade A+ mechanic, they were not his match. However, he wanted to steal the blueprint of Eternal Light. If his identity was exposed, he would have no choice but to snatch it from him. Han Xiao did not like to make enemies. Making friends was his favorite method. Seeing that Han Xiao did not speak, Sardim revealed a smile that said, "I've seen through you. I've been observing you for some time. Actually, you've been hiding your strength. You're not a grade B+ mechanic but a calamity grade, right?" Without waiting for Han Xiao's reply, Sardim sat still and stared at Han Xiao with his hands crossed over his mouth. He then continued, "You're right. A calamity grade mechanic hiding in my industry, willing to work here as an ordinary engineer. This makes me suspect your true intentions. Based on my observation, you seem to be very interested in the Eternal Light blueprint. Am I right?" Hearing this, Han Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, this guy only saw through my grade A strength and did not know my true identity. He only thought that I was an ordinary calamity grade mechanic. Seeing how fearless Sardim was, Han Xiao could guess that Sardim thought that he had him in the bag. Indeed, Sardim was a grade A+ mechanic and had an entire planet as his base. This was his home ground. Normal calamity grades were indeed no match for him. Understanding Sardim's confidence, Han Xiao calmed down and did not expose Sardim's misunderstanding. Instead, he pretended to be an ordinary calamity grade and pretended to be vigilant. "What do you want?" Seeing this, Sardim smiled with satisfaction. He wanted to see Barn nervous. "I don't know where you got the information about Eternal Light, nor do I know which organization you belong to. However, don't worry. I didn't call you here to settle the score but to give you an invitation." "Invitation?" Han Xiao raised his brows. Sardim stood up and smiled. "Be my subordinate. I can guarantee that this will be the wisest decision you'll make in your life." "You want to recruit me?" Han Xiao's tone was strange. "You're too careless. You don't even know where I came from. Are you sure that I won't be able to cause you any trouble? Bro, you're a little too arrogant. Even someone as outstanding as me isn't as arrogant as you. I have many businesses and many troops, but I lack a capable assistant. You have the qualifications. We will be strong allies," Sardim said calmly. Han Xiao shook his head helplessly. "I'm not interested, this time." Sardim waved his hand and interrupted Han Xiao. He chuckled and said, "If you're willing to become my subordinate, not just Eternal Light, I'll let you learn all the blueprints that I know." I'll have to think about it." Han Xiao's eyes flickered, and he immediately changed his mind. As the leader of his faction, it was naturally impossible for him to be the subordinate of a calamity grade. However, getting some blueprints seemed to be quite tempting. After all, what Bane did had nothing to do with him. Black Star, cough cough, that was what he meant. Han Xiao rolled his eyes and suddenly asked, "Are you forcing me? If I don't join you, will you use force on me?" Sardim shook his head and chuckled. "Don't worry, I don't like to make enemies. If I targeted everyone who visited planet Macipher, I wouldn't have lasted this long. You can reject me, but I won't chase you away or even force you to reveal your true identity. You can continue to stay in the Cornerstone Summit Corporation as Bane. There's no need for me to reject a grade A mechanic working in one of my businesses, but I'll keep an eye on you and not let you get involved in any major project." Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. "You're quite generous. It's very difficult for a petty person to achieve anything. I've been running Planet Macipher for almost 130 years. What kind of situation have I not seen?" Sardim had a calm expression on his face, and his aura leaked out. Han Shao pondered for a while before shaking his head. He was the leader of a pseudo-beyond grade A faction. It would be too embarrassing for him to become a subordinate of a calamity grade for the sake of a blueprint. Although he had disguised himself, if his true identity was accidentally exposed one day, it would become a dark history that he would never be able to wash away. It would destroy his lofty image in the hearts of the players, and it would not be beneficial for stabilizing his sense of belonging to the faction. It would not be beneficial for the growth of his leek farm. The Eternal Light blueprint was indeed good stuff, but it was not to the point where he had to get it at all costs. Furthermore, do you think that I won't be able to get the blueprint if I don't join you? You're dreaming. Seeing that Han Shao had rejected him, Sardim narrowed his eyes. Hee, I know that you have the pride of a calamity grade, but I'm worthy of you following me. Do you think an ordinary person can get the blueprint of the Radiant Federation's flagship? Hearing this, Han Xiaoxin's head twitched slightly. Indeed, the blueprint of Eternal Light was priceless. Even he could not buy it, so how did Sardim get it? Was this guy really that good? Sardim stared at Han Shao with his hands behind his back. You might think that as a Calamity Grade Super, there's no need for you to join another Calamity Grade Super, so you rejected me. But what if I say that I'm not only representing myself, but there's a Beyond Grade A behind me? Han Shao was stunned. Thinking about it carefully, other than Sardim's strength, there should be some unknown reason why Planet Macipher could operate for so long. He might indeed be a secret officer of some Beyond Grade A Super. However, there were only 4 Beyond Grade as in the Shattered Star Ring. Who was this guy's backer? The Tyrant? Possible, but the chances were low. After all, Sardim was not a muscle tyrant. Magus? Not too likely, but the logic was the same as above. Star Pupil? Forget about that nerd who only focused on managing his own territory. The possibility was not high either. Could it be the Dragon Emperor? Hey, stop joking. Ames is my backer. Do you think I'm going to go against the Dragon Emperor? Seeing the confusion on Han Zhao's face, Sardim shook his head and smiled. I think you've definitely heard of him before. Sardim had an arrogant look on his face, and he had a sense of superiority. Have you heard of the Mecha Empire? Han Xiaoxin's heart skipped a beat. He was extremely surprised and almost had the urge to turn around and leave. Mecha Empire Manison? Never heard of him before. Goodbye. Genius memorized this address in 1 second. Chapter 742. Sardim actually claimed that he was a subordinate of the Mecha Empire. This was information that Han Shao did not expect. In his previous life, Sardim was not a well-known NPC in the eyes of the players, and there was no storyline about him. He did not expect him to be so secretive. The Mecha Empire was an extremely powerful person. As a member of the Ancient Ones, they formed their own faction in the Calamity of the Supers version. Han Shao was very sensitive to Manison's name and did not want to have anything to do with him. The reason was because of Erosia. She was a survivor of the AI civilization that Manison had conquered, and Rista still hoped that he could stand up for them. Han Shao had a restart mission in his hands. However, he was not willing to provoke this ancient and powerful existence. The two of them had never crossed paths, and the Mecha Empire did not have any conflicts of interest with him. It would be a huge loss to make such a strong enemy for a normal mission. In truth, he did not want to do this mission, so he had been dragging Rista along. Rista also knew that it would be impossible to complete this mission without the help of a Beyond Grade A, so he waited patiently and did not rush him too much. Manison was mainly active in the Central Galaxy and the Primeval Star River, but his forces and claws were spread across many star fields, secretly recruiting talents. His Mechanic Emperor nickname did not just refer to his mechanical army, but also the number of mechanics under him that was comparable to a country. He did not expect the Mecha Empire to have subordinates even in the remote Shattered Star Ring. His influence was really long. The Mechanic Emperor likes to recruit mechanic. As his subordinate in the Shattered Star Ring, Sardim probably recruited me for this reason as well. No wonder this guy is so arrogant. It turns out that he's so confident. A thought flashed through Han Zhao's mind. However, although he was shocked by Sardim's self-introduction, he calmed down very quickly. No matter what, the Mecha Empire did not know of his existence at all. There was no conflict between them, so there was no need for him to be afraid of them. They were in the open while he was in the dark. This was his biggest advantage. Furthermore, he had accidentally discovered that Sardim was actually a secret subordinate of the Mecha Empire, which was a huge gain. After pretending to hesitate for a while, Han Xiao shook his head and rejected. Of course, I've heard of the Mecha Empire, but I still don't want to join. Hearing this, Sardim's confident expression froze on his face, and he was stunned. He thought that as long as he mentioned the Mecha Empire, recruiting this person would be easy. He did not expect Bane to reject him. Don't you know how valuable the resources in the Mechanic Emperor's hands are to a mechanic? Sardim's tone was weird. It was as if he was angry that Han Xiao did not know how to take advantage of such a great opportunity. Manison had accumulated countless years of technology and blueprint, let alone cutting-edge knowledge. He probably even had the highest level of mechanic ultimate knowledge. He also had all kinds of blueprints that were lost or kept secret by certain civilizations. He even had the blueprints of spaceships and weapons from the 3 universal civilizations. He could be called the library of the mechanic class, attracting countless mechanics to join him. Of course, all this knowledge and blueprints had to be exchanged for with contribution. Han Xiao raised his brows. I understand what you mean, but not all mechanics are willing to be subordinates of the Mecha Empire, right? He was indeed tempted by the resources the Mecha Empire had, but the knowledge, technology, and blueprints were not for nothing. He had to work for the Mecha Empire for a long time in exchange for contribution. Joining the Mecha Empire was different from joining Sardim. He had the confidence to crush Sardim, but he could not crush the Mecha Empire, so he could only play by the rules of others. Furthermore, his real identity would most likely be exposed in the Mecha Empire. If he joined the Mecha Empire, he would really be working for someone else. Therefore, there was no way he would agree. This was just like how, although joining a Fortune 500 company was good, compared to being an executive in a Fortune 500 company, he would rather start his own company. Although his current scale was not as big as the company, he would still be able to enjoy all the benefits. It was impossible for him to work. He could only barely make ends meet by managing the army and harvesting leek. Sardim narrowed his eyes, returned to his seat, and sat down. With an expressionless face, he said, "You can leave now." Seeing that Bane was determined to reject his offer, he could not be bothered to waste his breath on this guy. He was not afraid that Han Xiao would find out about his identity. He had been operating on planet Macipher for more than 100 years, and his background was not a secret in the eyes of some people. He dared to introduce himself because he was not afraid of being exposed. He was operating planet Macipher openly. So what if he knew that he was a subordinate of the Mecha Empire? His Excellency Manison was not a wanted criminal, and it was not against the law to develop a stronghold in the Shattered Star Ring. Han Xiao did not care about Sardim's dissatisfaction. He shook his head and left the room. He was not afraid of offending Sardim, but this way, Sardim would definitely increase the surveillance on him, and it would be even harder to steal eternal light. Thankfully, Sardim did not see through my real identity. He misjudged my strength, and this is my advantage. I should be able to hide some tricks from him. However, if I still can't steal it in the end, I'll have to use Bane's identity to steal it. Or should I change my identity? While thinking about murder and arson, Han Shao slowly walked away. After Han Shao left, Sardim was the only one left in the office. He shook his head with a disappointed expression. He had thought that recruiting Bane would be a simple matter, but he did not expect this guy to be so stubborn. Beep beep beep. At this time, Sardim's communicator rang. He looked at the caller, and his expression changed. He hurriedly picked up the call. "Hello, Your Excellency Cisco." The person who had contacted him was Cisco. The screen showed that it was a video call from Cisco. "If I remember correctly, Planet Macipher is still your territory?" "Yes, what can I do for you?" Sardim's tone was respectful, completely different from when he was talking to Han Shao. As the leader of the Star Pupil Protoss race, Cisco could easily contact the ruler of a famous neutral planet. Furthermore, he had known Sardim for a long time. Sardim's background was the Arcane Church, so he had a lot of information. Sardim's true background was no secret to him. Because of the Arcane Church, although Cisco was located in the remote Shattered Star Ring, he was still one of the top beyond grade as in the Central Galaxy. Those big shots all knew that he was half an ally of the Arcane Church and was a heavy chip of the Arcane Church. Although Cisco focused on running his own race and did not like to cause trouble like the Tyrant, in terms of influence in the upper echelons, Cisco was the leader of the 4 beyond grade as in the Shattered Star Ring. He was a cold and low-profile big shot. Therefore, Sardim was very respectful to him. Because of the Mecha Empire, the two of them had known each other for a long time. There's something I need you to do," Cisco slowly said. "I need you to keep an eye on a Light Fox spaceship for me. I'll send you the details later. No matter who takes this spaceship to your planet, keep an eye on them. They're most likely there to repair their spaceship. Think of a way to make them stay on planet Macipher." "Okay, I'll remember it." Sardim agreed without hesitation. Since the big shot wanted him to do something, this was a favor delivered right to his doorstep. Although he claimed to be neutral, he still knew what kind of people he should give special privileges to. "You must stall them and not let them escape the Shattered Star Ring," Cisco emphasized. "Understood." Sardim nodded. Only then did Cisco end the call. Because the second doppelganger had used teleportation to bring Colin and the others to steal the evolution cube, the Star Pupil Protoss had not left behind any image records of this group of people, so they did not know what Colin and the others looked like. However, because of the battleship exchange outside their mother planet, they remembered the appearance of Colin's Light Fox spaceship. The spiritual imprint that Psyker had left on the evolution cube showed that the evolution cube was no longer escaping through hyperdrive and had stopped for the first time. After checking the star map, Psyker realized that the evolution cube had stopped at planet Macipher. Since he knew the location of the other party's spaceship, he could naturally guess the intentions of these thieves. They were definitely doing the final resting before the cross-star field voyage. Therefore, Cisco came up with a countermeasure. He contacted Sardim and asked this local tyrant for help. He had been chasing after them all this time. As long as he could delay them for a few days, he would arrive. With his power, Colin and the others would not be able to escape from him. At the same time, outside the planet, Colin piloted the heavily damaged Light Fox spaceship and slowly headed toward the spaceport of planet Macipher. Because of the superiority of the spaceship's engine, they maintained super high warp speed and spent close to 10 days to cross half of the star field, shaking off their pursuers. Now that they had finally arrived at this famous neutral planet, planet Macipher was the place where they chose to repair their spaceship. Chapter 743. The Light Fox spaceship headed toward the spaceport of planet Macipher. Inside the spaceship, Colin was giving orders to his subordinate. "We will land in an acropolis later. Find a local shipyard immediately and have them tow the spaceship there. Repair it as quickly as possible. Money is not a problem. As for the rest of us, find a hidden place to rest in the Acropolis of planet Macipher first. Everyone responded sparsely. Orozen lazily said, "Don't worry, planet Macipher is a neutral planet. No one will come find trouble with us. The star pupil Protoss will not know which direction we are escaping to. There are no pursuers behind us, so we are basically safe. As long as we stay on planet Macipher for a day or two to repair the spaceship, we can return with the evolution cube." Speaking of the evolution cube, Orozen subconsciously looked at the small black cube hanging around Colin's neck, his eyes burning with desire. Noticing his gaze, Colin yelled, "We will study how to use this thing after we leave the shattered star ring. Don't even think about it now." With the treasure in hand, everyone was a little envious, but no one had any other thoughts. At most, they just wanted to experience the effects of the evolution cube. While the evolution cube was a universal treasure, it was not worth betraying ES-God for. Because ES-God had the information of the evolutionary civilization, they knew a thing or two about the effects of the evolution cube and would not have any unnecessary expectations for it. Otherwise, with so many calamity grades in the star pupil Protoss race, there would not be only one beyond grade A super, Cisco. However, it was true that they could become stronger with the evolution cube. This time, the spaceship entered the spaceport, went through some simple procedures, and landed in one of the Acropolis of planet Macipher. Once they got off the spaceship, Colin and the others found a shipyard that was not very famous and paid them to repair the spaceship. The Light Fox spaceship was equipped with a top-notch hyperdrive engine. What would have taken ordinary spaceships a few months only took them a few days. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for them to travel from the star pupil Protoss race's territory to planet Macipher in just 10 days. They insisted on repairing the ship because the speed of the Light Fox spaceship could greatly reduce the time it took to cross the star field. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they would absolutely not change the vehicle. Because they kept running, they did not know if there were any pursuers. However, in their opinion, the high-speed warp jump of the Light Fox spaceship was enough to shake off any pursuers. Perhaps the star pupil Protoss did not even know where they were running to. Of course, the connection between Cisco and the evolution cube was a secret, and they did not know that their location had been exposed. As for their identity, they were not worried at all. They had stolen the evolution cube through the ES-God doppelganger's teleportation ability, so the star pupil Protoss did not know what they looked like. The only time they were exposed was in the Tyla civilization, but that was a few months ago and had nothing to do with the theft of the evolution cube. No one would link the two incidents together. After all, the star pupil Protoss race did not announce that Zhang Jinhua's evolution cube had been stolen. Even the news on planet Avitan was temporarily suppressed by the country and did not cause any waves in the shattered star ring. The secret war continued to dominate the headlines. Therefore, in the hearts of Colin and the others, reaching planet Macipher was equivalent to taking one step out of the shattered star ring. They thought that they were completely safe. Because the spaceship was sent for maintenance, Colin and the others stayed in a galactic hotel in the Acropolis. However, they did not know that they had been targeted the moment they entered planet Macipher. It had only been half an hour since Cisco's call. "The Light Fox spaceship has already appeared?" Sardim received the news immediately. All the port entry information of planet Macipher was under his surveillance. The moment Colin's spaceship entered, he discovered it. Sardim monitored the actions of Colin and the others. They went to Acropolis number 2 and found a shipyard to repair the spaceship. The people on the spaceship then stayed in a hotel. The location is security forces, observation satellites, and every camera was connected to the floating city's central control system. The entire planet was under his surveillance. After locking onto the Light Fox spaceship, Sardim naturally locked onto Colin and the others. He indeed did not know Colin and the others, but after searching for a while, he found that Orozen was wanted by the Tyla civilization. It's actually a group of wanted criminals? Why is Cisco chasing after them? Sardim could not help but think. Could it be that he wants to use this as an opportunity to establish a friendly relationship between the star pupil Protoss race and the Tyla civilization? From Cisco's standpoint, it's possible for him to do so. However, for him to do it personally, maybe he wants to magnify the impact of this matter? He could not help but let his imagination run wild. Due to the lack of information, he naturally did not know about the theft of the evolution cube. Furthermore, due to his preconceived notions, Sardim would not associate the small black cube around Colin's neck with the huge star pupil Protoss national treasure, the evolution cube. Cisco only told me to stall them. So if it's not necessary, I don't have to do anything to them. Sardim pondered for a while and gave up on the idea of probing them personally for fear of alerting them. He changed his method and gave a new order to his mechanical security forces through the floating city's control center. He secretly increased the patrol density around where Colin and the others were staying, which was equivalent to placing more spies and increasing the surveillance. Right, Sardim thought of something else. He called the shipyard that had taken over the repair work of the Light Fox spaceship and ordered them to slack off and do something to the spaceship. Although this shipyard was not his, with his position on planet Macipher, he still had this bit of authority. That's about it. Now I just have to slowly monitor them. Sardim gave a new order to the floating city's control center. The moment Colin and the others made any movements, they were to inform him. He then put this matter aside. As the owner of the planet, he was very busy every day and could not keep an eye on the monitor all the time. After parting with Sardim on bad terms, Han Shao realized that no one had chased him away. He completed his work in the afternoon as usual, but in the evening, he received some bad news. The Cornerstone Summit Corporation had transferred him away from the Eternal Light Project and did not allow him to continue participating in this project. He was no longer required to continue building spaceship parts, and the blueprints in his hands were all taken back. He had already learned these blueprints, so it did not matter if he handed them back. However, Sardim's signal was already very clear. He would not give Han Shao any chance to come into contact with the Eternal Light blueprint. Sardim is starting to be wary of me. If I continue to stay in the corporation, I will only be a coolie in the future and will not be involved in important projects. Han Shao shook his head. I've already gotten the talent. There's no need to continue staying on planet Macipher. I can escape after getting the Eternal Light blueprint. Although Sardim had increased his vigilance against him, Han Shao already had some idea of how to steal the final core component blueprint of Eternal Light. Speaking of which, this was the clue that Sardim had given him. Originally, Han Shao could not find where the core component blueprint was hidden in the Cornerstone Summit Corporation's database, which was a bit of a stalemate. However, Sardim had taken the initiative to reveal it today, which gave him a new target. It turned out that Sardim was the actual owner of the Eternal Light blueprint. This meant that he definitely had the Eternal Light blueprint at home, so he did not have to do anything to the Cornerstone Summit Corporation anymore. Meanwhile, Sardim's home was the majestic floating city base above planet Macipher. Han Zhao's goal was to hack into Sardim's floating city. Sardim doesn't know my true strength, and I don't know if he'll regret revealing his strength to me today. Oh, I almost forgot. He definitely won't regret it, because he won't know that I hacked into his floating city. If not for the fact that he was working for the Cornerstone Summit Corporation for his talent, he would not have caught Sardim's attention. If he had not caught Sardim's attention, he would not have been recruited. If he had not been recruited, he would not have known that Sardim was the real owner of the Eternal Light blueprint. It could be said that Sardim had personally pointed him in the right direction. Han Shao chuckled in his mind. The floating city was the base of a grade A+ armed grade mechanic, so its AI defense was even stronger. The Cornerstone Summit Corporation's database could not compare to it at all. However, he was a virtual mechanic whose grade was even higher than Sardine's. As long as he was prepared properly, it was still possible for him to silently infiltrate the floating city's central control system. However, it's best to increase my chances. Han Xiao was currently level 221, and he would be able to trigger the Apostle Mechanic class advancement at level 225. As long as he completed the class advancement, his virtual technology would become even stronger. There was an ocean of EXP stored in his experience interface. As he did not have anything urgent to do before this, Han Xiao wanted to store up EXP for a breakthrough. Now that he needed it, he did not waste any time. The night on planet Macipher was as noisy as day. The galactic travelers were having fun all night, and spaceships with colorful tails flew past the tall buildings. It was as if they painted the night sky with neon lights. This was the life of the galactic resident. The nightlife there was rich, so no one stopped Han Xiao from sneaking out of the Cornerstone Summit Corporation's dormitory. He came to the ground port, returned to the boathouse he rented, boarded the spaceship, and walked into the combat training room to avoid attracting attention. After closing the door of the combat training room, Han Xiao opened the interface. Without hesitation, he used his EXP to level up. Very soon, he reached level 225 and was stuck on the class advancement mission of Apostle Mechanic. Han Xiao had spent 7 years accumulating mission completion cards, so he naturally had some left. He directly completed the class advancement mission. The next moment, his brain trembled. You have used a mission completion card. Your class advancement mission has been completed. You have received a new class, Emperor Mechanic LV1. Plus 300 energy, plus 5 STR, plus 5 DX, plus 8 YND, plus 12 INT. You have received 10 free attribute points and 1 potential point. You have received the talent Machinery Emperor. You have learned the ability Emperor Grade Machinery Affinity. You have learned the ability Emperor's Gift. You have learned the ability Quantum Infinite Distance Transmission Channel inactive. You have learned the ability Secondary Dimension Army inactive. You have learned the ability Mechanical Force King's Authority inactive. You have learned the ability King's Mentor inactive. All your virtual technology skills and talents have been increased by 35%. Chapter 744. The next stage of the Apostle Mechanic class was called Emperor Mechanic, and the upper limit was level 35. This was what the name meant, and it could be said to be the Emperor of Machines, leading countless mechanical soldiers. As the saying went, a king could not be without soldiers. The skills of this class would greatly enhance the army style, and at the same time, it would further increase one's strength. The Machinery Emperor talent's introduction was Machines will submit to you like the people. Its effect was to increase the efficiency of virtual intrusion by 150%, increase machinery affinity by 200%, and increase the default level of all machinery-type skills by 1. This bonus could break through the level limit. This talent had another effect, which was also a core effect. Just like the Apostle Mechanic talent, Mechanical Force Sublimation, Apostle Body, Machinery Emperor also allowed one's mechanical force attribute to sublimate once more, giving machines a special strengthening effect. This was the prerequisite for many of the skills of the Emperor Mechanic class. Needless to say, Emperor Machinery Affinity was a new machinery affinity skill, and its effect was even stronger than Apostle Machinery Affinity. When it reached the max level, it would increase machinery affinity by 150%. Emperor's Gift was one of the core skills. Its effect was to use the mechanical force of Machinery Emperor to permanently strengthen a single machine, giving it extremely strong additional attribute. It could only be used 3 times on the same target, and the cooldown time was rather long. The degree of strengthening depended on Han Zhao's attributes, and the target had a random chance of receiving additional special abilities. This skill was obviously used to create elite. It was like a reward from an emperor, giving great strength to his mechanical soldiers, making them stand out and become generals. In layman's terms, it was to strengthen normal monsters and turn them into elite monsters or even mini-bosses. Mechanics originally had the ability to strengthen machines, but at this stage, the strengthening skills would only be sublimated. As for the other 4 inactive skills, they could only be used after one learned the corresponding cutting-edge knowledges or even ultimate knowledges. Han Xiao still had a gap in this area. Quantum Infinite Distance Transmission Channel required a few cutting-edge knowledges, including advanced space application, and required a certain level of prerequisite. Its effect was an enhanced version of Han Zhao's mechanical force transmission. Because he was a void race, Han Xiao was able to transmit mechanical force across long distances, but this was limited to his own energy and was a personal talent. On the other hand, the Quantum Infinite Distance Transmission Channel was a technology that could be used widely, not only by himself but also by any kind of energy. It was a more high-end ultra-long-distance energy transmission method. The value of the two was completely different. Manison had used this technology to transform the AI civilization into the indestructible Mecha Empire. Secondary Dimension Army used space technology to hide the army in a secondary dimension. Then, through some kind of technology, one could control the passage to the secondary dimension and open it at any time. This was a more advanced mechanical and portable technology than compressed orb. Just like the introduction of the skill, the king personally led the army into battle. Wherever the emperor went, the king's flag would be raised. Mechanical force, emperor's authority, was a skill that allowed one's strength to return to themselves. It was like an advanced ability of machinery apostolization. At the same time, when the number of mechanical force added to the mechanical army reached a certain scale, it would be fed back to the main body, allowing the mechanic to receive attribute bonuses from the mechanical force link. The degree of enhancement to the main body depended on the size of the army. The larger the army, the greater the bonuses of mechanical force, emperor's authority. This was the biggest benefit of the army style. As long as this skill was activated, once the mechanical force bonus was applied to the mech army, the mechanic would receive a huge bonus and obtain even more strength from it. Of course, the energy consumption was also very high. If an ordinary mechanic did not have the ability to recover energy, they would not be able to activate mechanical force, Emperor's authority, for a long time. The introduction of the skill was also very direct. The might of the Emperor's authority came from the army, and the army was the source of the king's strength. The more the army, the stronger the Emperor's authority. The final skill, King's Mentor, was somewhat similar to Emperor's Gift. It was also an ability to strengthen machinery. The difference was that this skill was an AoE skill and could be used on a large scale. Its effect was also very special. Using the special mechanical force of the Machinery Emperor, it could be stored in the machinery for a long time, and through the energy furnace, the strengthened machinery would obtain self-growth. Self-growth meant that the machinery would be able to level up on its own without Han Xiao needing to take the initiative to modify it. As long as the strengthened mechanical soldiers were not destroyed in battle, their attributes would slowly increase and gradually become elite. Blue-grade mechanical soldiers would slowly level up to purple grade, and level 100 mechanical soldiers would slowly grow to be comparable to level 120 mechanical soldiers. It was like turning mechanical soldiers that were originally inanimate objects into living soldiers. As long as they did not die, they would become experienced soldiers. The introduction of the skill was King's Mentor, experienced in hundreds of battles, elites are hard to be called, which meant that the king's mentor would be nurtured as the king of machinery. These skills had basically displayed the characteristics of the emperor mechanic. With the army style as the main focus, one could command countless mechanical soldiers and treat them as living subjects. Gradually, the mechanical equipment would be upgraded in the direction of mechanical life. Just like Cisco's ability to activate psychic energy, the machinery emperor talent also gave the mechanical force similar attributes and could activate machinery. The upgraded mechanical force could become a special energy that flowed in the structure of the machinery for a long time, becoming the energy of the machinery itself, just like the energy of mechanical life. Apostle Mechanic was a watershed in the later stages of the mechanic class. In the later stages, the methods of a mechanic would become more and more miraculous. Using the word emperor to describe a mechanic's ability at this stage was very fitting. They were the kings of machines. In the combat training room, Han Shao endured the painful changes brought about by the class advancement, and his eyes were filled with electricity. This was not a race evolution, and Han Zhao's body did not mutate. Instead, the energy in his body was going berserk, and his mechanical force seemed to be boiling. On the microscopic level, every cell was like a supernova explosion, tirelessly squeezing out mechanical force, and the total amount kept increasing before compressing on its own. During this process, his mechanical force was gradually reborn and completed its upgrade. The enormous amount of mechanical force roared through his body, and Han Shao even had a deafening rumbling sound. After a short while, the sound in his ears slowly disappeared, and the springtime cells in his body seemed to have been squeezed dry. The energy in his body calmed down. Han Shao let out a long breath, and his senses were refreshed again. Energy was the foundation of a super. Not only was it the fuel to use great strength, but it also promoted the evolution of a super's genes. This class advancement caused his mechanical force to undergo a qualitative upgrade. Although his species did not change, Han Shao could feel that his life level had increased again, and it was no less than a promotion. In the later stages of his class advancement, the level required for each class advancement would even exceed the promotion threshold every 20 levels, and the increase brought by the class advancement would also become greater and greater. This class advancement had greatly increased his abilities as a mechanic. Although his attributes did not change much, these new skills were extremely powerful. Browsing through the new abilities brought by the class advancement, Han Shao was quite happy. The 4 unactivated abilities can't be used for now. They can only be activated after I learn the corresponding class knowledge. TSK, I can only test their actual effects after they are activated. Han Shao could not help but ponder. For now, only Machinery Emperor, Emperor-grade Machinery Affinity, and Emperor's Gift can be used. Also, my virtual technology abilities have all been strengthened by 35%, so my chances of invading Sardine's floating city are much higher. Thinking about it, Han Shao decided not to level up his abilities for now. Level 240 was just around the corner, and he did not want to spend his experience elsewhere. Since he had already started leveling up, he did not want to stop. He decided to put all his experience into it to see how much he needed. His total level rose to level 238 in one go, and his experience pool was almost depleted very quickly. The remaining experience could only fill up 3/4 of his experience bar, not enough to level up one more level. He should still be 2 levels away from beyond grade A. It's about the same as what I estimated. I still need a few more days before the experience provided by the players can fill up the last gap. Han Shao nodded. Class advancement was class advancement, and he had plenty of time to slowly study the new abilities in the future. He did not forget his goal tonight, which was to connect his mind to the quantum network. His vision suddenly turned dark, and the next moment, the quantum network nodes lit up one after another in the darkness like thousands of lights. These nodes were of various sizes, bright and dark, and the light beams formed by the interaction of information connected these nodes, forming a network that covered the entire city, outlining the shape of the city. Han Shao looked up. In the sky above the main city, the floating city's quantum network nodes were as dazzling as stars, surrounded by countless ribbon-like defense mechanisms, like crystal cores surrounded by runes. With a thought, Han Shao headed straight for the floating city's quantum network node. The floating city node suddenly enlarged in his vision, and he flew into the node. What entered his vision was an impenetrable wall weaved by a flood of data. Many data dots that acted as guards patrolled the surroundings like an orderly army. This was the outermost firewall of the floating city's control center. Philip, get him. The floating city was the base of a grade A+ mechanic, so Sardim naturally knew the danger of a virtual mechanic. He had set up many defenses for the base, and the artificial intelligence defense of the floating city's control center was many times stronger than that of the Cornerstone Summit Corporation. Normal calamity-grade virtual mechanics would not be able to enter at all. However, Han Shao had just completed his class advancement, and his virtual technology had been strengthened. It was rather easy for him to deal with the artificial intelligence defense mechanism of the floating city. After all, virtual mechanics were undoubtedly experts in spreading greenery. Armed mechanics were not good at such non-direct confrontations, and Han Zhao's raw strength was much higher than Sardim's. Silently infiltrating the enemy's artificial intelligence was much more difficult than directly attacking it. Han Shao did not dare be too aggressive and cooperated with Philip to slowly infiltrate the defense mechanism of the floating city's control center to avoid triggering the alarm. His base was being silently invaded by Han Shao and Philip, and Sardim, as the owner, knew nothing about it. After spending quite some time, Han Shao finally went around the floating city's control center's defense line and went deep into the control center, leaving his temporary authority inside. Done. Han Shao was overjoyed. Philip, search his database and find the Eternal Light blueprint. Searching, Found it, Philip's tone was joyful. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled, and he could not help but laugh. As expected, this guy did not dare put the blueprint in the databases of other industries but saved it in the database of his base. Sardim's blueprint was most likely exchanged from the Mecha Empire with his merit. The Mecha Empire's hometown was so far away from the Shattered Star Ring, so it was impossible for them to transport the physical blueprint over. Therefore, the blueprint was sent to Sardim in the form of data, and Sardim had a very high chance of keeping the complete blueprint in the form of data. Because the floating city's defense was far stronger than the Cornerstone Summit Corporation's, most virtual mechanics would not be able to break in. Therefore, he was more assured that the blueprint would be stored in the database of his base. With the prerequisite of security, this method was naturally more convenient than the physical blueprint. This way, Han Shao did not need to steal the physical blueprint and only needed to copy the floating city's database, which saved him a lot of effort. Han Shao chuckled and said, Philip, copy all of his blueprint database. Since the database had the complete blueprint of Eternal Light, there was an 80% chance that all of the blueprints that Sardim had accumulated from the Mecha Empire were stored there as well. It was not easy for him to sneak in, so Han Shao did not mind stealing. Not only did he steal the Eternal Light blueprint, he even took all of Sardim's inventory. Han Shao took a look at what Sardim was doing, and his expression turned weird. Sardim was browsing the database. Because the alarm of the defense mechanism was not triggered, even though he was using the database, he did not notice Han Zhao's actions. He did not know that Han Shao had opened a backdoor in the floating city's control center and that his assets had been ransacked. This is quite exciting, but it's a little perverted. Han Shao tilted his head and felt weird. Philip was busy copying the blueprint. He had nothing else to do, so he opened the command log of the control center to see what Sardim had been doing recently. The log recorded all of Sardim's orders. Han Shao was originally just casually glancing through it, but his gaze suddenly froze. He realized that Sardim had personally done something today, which made him a little concerned. Sending a large number of mechanical security forces to monitor a group of people in Acropolis No. 2? Interesting. Isn't Sardim neutral? Why is he monitoring people all of a sudden? To be able to catch his attention, it has to be at least a calamity grade like me. I get it. This guy is probably going to use the name of the Mecha Empire to recruit people again. If it's really a calamity grade, I might be able to steal a talent from him before I leave planet Macipher. Han Shao could not help but smirk. He casually pulled out the image of the target that the mechanical security forces were monitoring, and the moment he saw the image, his smile froze on his face. It was Colin and his group in the image. Han Shao had never seen this group of people before, but he recognized one of them. Orozen, the wanted criminal of the Tyla civilization, the murderer of Herifel, suspected to be God's subordinate. This person was the target of the Grade A bounty mission Herifel's Revenge. This discovery was out of Han Zhao's expectations. He was stunned on the spot, and all sorts of guesses flashed through his mind. It's actually this group of people? They disappeared for a few months. Why would they suddenly appear here? Han Shao secretly became vigilant. Herifel's last words had said that this group of people was very likely sent by God to take revenge on them. Herifel was already dead, and this group of people suddenly appeared on planet Macipher after a few months. Could it be that they had finally come to take revenge on him? Thinking about it, Han Shao felt that something was not right. He had concealed his whereabouts and disguised his identity, so there was no reason for God's subordinates to find him. This is planet Macipher, the edge of the shattered star ring. They came here after a few months. Could it be that they're preparing to leave the shattered star ring and escape the pursuit of the Tyla civilization? Are they not going to take revenge on me? Han Shao frowned and pondered. From his perspective, Herifel's matter was the only intersection between them. With the few clues he had, he could only make limited inferences. He did not expect to run into God's subordinates here. Was this premeditated or just an accident? After pondering for a while, Han Zhao's eyes narrowed, and he made a decision. No matter what, since this group of people ran into me, whether it's to take revenge for Herifel or to complete the mission for the bounty, there's no reason for them to escape. Herifel was a friend who had fought side by side with him. Han Shao did not have the time to find the culprit, but if the enemy took the initiative to show up, he would not sit still and watch the culprit leave. Han Shao looked at the surveillance image again. He thought that he had guessed Sardim's intentions. Sardim is actually monitoring them too. Looks like this guy wants the bounty too. I have to strike first. This was not difficult for him. Since he had already hacked into the floating city's control center, as long as the surveillance mechanical troops did not call the police, he would be able to take action before Sardim. The only problem was that Han Shao felt that Orozen's group might have God's doppelganger in their hands. Han Shao secretly clenched his fists. Because of the possibility of God's doppelganger, he raised the danger level of Orozen and the others to the level of quasi-beyond grade A. Now that the enemy is out in the open and I'm in the dark, I can only ambush them and kill them before they summon God's doppelganger. Han Shao clenched his teeth. He was not sure about the combat strength of these people. He only knew that Orozen was a calamity grade, but his strength was enough to beat a bunch of ordinary calamity grades. If he wanted to kill them before they could summon God's doppelganger, he should have a 50% chance of success. Genius memorized this address in 1 second. Chapter 745. After locking onto the location of Orozen and the others, Han Xiao immediately contacted Hela and Fu Ding. "Where are you?" The screen showed the scene of a beast fighting casino. A few strange beasts from different planets were fighting each other. The edge of the arena was separated from the audience by a protective shield, and the audience was filled with people. Countless people were cheering for the beasts that they had placed their bets on, and the atmosphere was feverish. Fu Ding sat in the crowded audience, while Hela and Aurora sat beside him, watching the arena attentively. Fu Ding helplessly replied, "This is the largest public casino in the main city. We're gambling here." "Since when did you like gambling?" Han Xiao was surprised. "I don't like it. It's Chen Xing who insisted that I come here to gamble. She said why would I not want the money that was guaranteed? She asked me to come here to support the family." Han Xiao's mouth twitched. "Then what about the two of them?" "They insisted on coming with me." As soon as he said that, the battle in the arena came to an end. A giant python with green scales and a head that was dozens of meters long spewed out a poisonous mist, paralyzing the last giant beast and standing at the end. "We won again! We won again!" Aurora waved her arms excitedly. "Sister, we've already won 4 times in a row." Hela nodded slowly and turned to look at Fu Ding, seemingly addicted. "Who are you betting on next?" Fu Ding shrugged with a helpless expression that said, "It's not that I want to lead them astray." Han Xiao felt a toothache when he saw this. He coughed and said seriously, "Stop playing. We have things to do. Come and meet up with me now. I'll wait for you at Citadel number 2. I'll send you the location later." With that, Han Xiao turned off the communication. While maintaining his brain connection to the floating city's control center, he left the port and headed straight for Citadel number 2. There was no time like the present. Han Xiao planned to make a move against Orozen and the others tonight. After all, Sardim was a subordinate of the Mecha Empire, and this matter was a little sensitive, so Han Xiao still did not intend to reveal his true identity. Since he had already obtained the blueprint, there was no need to continue staying on planet Macipher. Barnes' fake identity was no longer useful, so he was not afraid of using the name Barn to cause trouble here. He could directly deal with Orozen and the others on the planet's surface without worrying about the consequences. Han Xiao waited for a while at the rendezvous point in Citadel number 2. Hela and the other 2 quickly joined him. As soon as they met, Aurora noticed the change in Han Xiao and screamed, "Your life force has become stronger again." Fu Ding and Hela were stunned when they heard this. Han Xiao did not deny it and nodded. "I have a feeling that I've already touched the threshold of the beyond grade A realm." Hela's body trembled, and she stared deeply at Han Xiao with a complicated expression. Fu Ding was sincerely happy for Han Xiao and asked, "So, are we leaving planet Macipher?" But before we leave, there's one more thing we need to do." Han Xiao then explained his intention to kill Orozen. Hela nodded. "The enemy has a grade A super. Fu Ding and I will go with you. Aurora, go back to the spaceship and wait." Fu Ding did not have any objections to chasing after wanted criminals, but he was a little confused. "With your strength, you don't need our help to deal with 1 or 2 calamity-grade supers, right?" Han Xiao shook his head, and his tone became serious. "Don't underestimate this group of people. They might be ES-God's subordinates, ES-God's doppelgangers with beyond grade A strength. We have to deal fatal damage to them the moment the battle starts, so we have to go all out from the start. Only with you guys will we have a higher chance of success." Hearing that the enemy was related to beyond grade as, Fu Ding and Hela's expressions also became serious. "If the enemy summons ES-God's doppelgangers, with my strength, I won't be in any danger, but you guys are different. Therefore, you have to listen to my orders. We only have one chance." Han Xiao immediately explained the battle plan to everyone. He had already suffered once, so he did not rush over. He did not dare to be careless in front of a beyond grade A super because he had the advantage of being in the dark. He decided to make full preparations first. Citadel Number 2, Star Bridge Hotel. This was where Colin and the others were staying. The Star Bridge Hotel was located in the red light district of Citadel Number 2. This district was filled with countless entertainment facilities, and the flow of people was huge. This hotel was expensive, and it stood in the middle of a street, extremely eye-catching. Colin and the others arrived on planet Macipher that day. After sending their spaceships for maintenance, they stayed in the hotel and spent money like water. They called for a large number of call girls of different races to party to their heart's content, working from day to night. The members of the fallen Ark naturally did not have much integrity and were used to indulging their desires. Even if Colin had a mission in mind, he did not reject this activity. This was because once they crossed the star field, they would spend a few years in the desolate universe belt. The last 1 or 2 days on planet Macipher would be their last chance to enjoy themselves. Colin pushed away the girl sleeping on top of him, climbed up from the bed and glanced around. There were more than 10 exhausted female creatures lying on the spacious bed. He put on a casual robe to cover the scars all over his body, took out a bottle of blue stimulant synthetic alcohol from the fridge, drank half of it in one gulp, and walked to the single-sided window in the hotel room, looking at the scenery outside. It was already late at night, but there were still many people on the street. 4 to 5 out of 10 people were drunk. The sky above the city was filled with red and green neon lights, making this planet look like a luxurious place. From time to time, hovering vehicles would fly across the sky, and mechanical security forces would patrol nearby. Looking at the scenery outside, Colin recalled his actions in the past few months. He had secretly done 2 big things in the shattered star ring, almost turning the star pupil Protoss upside down. Even the local beyond grade as were fooled by them. Now that he was about to retire, Colin could not help but feel a sense of pride. Touching the evolution cube on his neck, Colin could not help but smirk. Ah! Shattered star ring. This star field is just SOSO. The moment this thought appeared in his mind, the single-sided window in front of him was suddenly covered by a dazzling light. Boom! The next moment, the window exploded. The powerful shockwave directly sent Colin, who was standing in front of the window, flying. He crashed through the wall of the room and landed in the hallway of the inn. At the same time, the same explosion occurred in all the rooms. One by one, Colin's subordinates were blown away and fell to the ground like him. The entire hotel seemed to have been bombed. Bricks and stones flew everywhere, and dust splashed everywhere, turning the place into a mess. Orozen, who was completely naked, also landed in the corridor. Colin immediately exchanged glances with him, and their gloomy and angry eyes revealed the same message. Someone attacked them? Could it be the bounty hunters? The enemy could only be here for the Tyla civilization's bounty. With 2 calamity-grade supers here, these bounty hunters were simply courting death. Colin glared at Orozen fiercely and was about to erupt with his calamity-grade strength to get rid of these bounty hunters. The next moment, 2 mental shockwaves swept past like hurricanes. One was dark red, and the other was colorless, sweeping through the entire hotel. Who? The brains of all his subordinates suddenly exploded, turning into blood and flesh. Only Colin and Orozen managed to withstand the 2 mental shockwaves. However, their brains were also in extreme pain and their minds went blank. They temporarily lost control of their bodies. There were 2 calamity-grade supers among the bounty hunters? Colin and Orozen's expressions changed drastically. However, before they could struggle, a strong light flashed before their eyes again. This was the last scene they saw. Outside the Star Bridge Hotel, the pedestrians on the street were all shocked and ran far away. Just a moment ago, a black mechanical army that blotted out the sky had suddenly appeared, surrounding the Star Bridge Hotel in 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. They were firing madly at the hotel, with each round containing tens of thousands of light cannons. Boom! Half of the street where the Star Bridge Hotel was located was directly razed to the ground. The people on the street were blocked by the Mech Legion, and they could not see through the dense Mech Legion to see what was happening inside. On the other side, within the encirclement of the Mech Legion, Han Shao looked at the 2 corpses in front of him with a strange expression. These 2 corpses belonged to Colin and Orozen. Before the 2 of them could even resist, they were instantly killed by the Mech Legion's ambush and died on the spot. Han Shao had tried his best to overestimate the strength of his opponent. Originally, he was prepared to personally charge in and fight when the Mech Legion ambushed them. However, he did not expect to be able to kill these 2 Calamity-grade supers in 1 round of ambush. This was much smoother than he had expected. Han Shao originally had a few backup plans, but he realized that they were all useless. Instead, he was shocked to see how easy it was. Aren't these people God's subordinates? Why are they so weak? He had thought that God's subordinates would be stronger, but it felt no different from killing other Calamity-grade supers. Han Zhao's mouth twitched, and he felt as though he had punched cotton. It was like using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. It was as though he was fighting with the air. It might be because I just completed my class advancement and my strength increased, so I can crush normal Calamity-grade supers even more easily. By the way, these 2 don't have any talents that are immune to true damage, so it's not surprising that they were instantly killed by my 3 attacks of true damage. Han Shao could only convince himself like this. He originally had the strength to crush Calamity-grade supers, and he had just completed his class advancement. Not to mention too, even 20 Calamity-grade supers would not be a problem. With Orozen dead, Harifal's revenge was displayed as complete. Han Shao got Philip to use a mechanical suit to carry Orozen's corpse and bring it back to the Tyla civilization to exchange for the bounty. This time, he looked at the corpse of the other Calamity-grade super, Colin, and noticed the square accessory on Colin's neck. What's this thing? It actually didn't get destroyed after being ambushed by the army? Han Shao was a little curious, so he bent down and picked up the small black square. The moment his finger touched the small black square, an item introduction popped up on the interface. With just one look, Han Zhao's face froze. He rubbed his eyes, looked at the item introduction again, and almost could not believe his eyes. Evolution. Cube. Is there something wrong with my eyes? Isn't this Cisco's universal treasure? Why is it here? Did I just pick up a divine weapon on the street? Han Shao grabbed the evolution cube and was dumbfounded. All of a sudden, he understood. He turned around and stared at Fu Ding. Why are you looking at me? Fu Ding's hair stood on end from Han Zhao's invasive gaze. Han Shao swallowed his saliva, raised his thumb, and almost broke his voice. Fu Ding, awesome! Fu Ding's face was filled with question marks. A few minutes later, Sardim arrived at Acropolis No. 2 with a large mechanical army and arrived at the scene. At this time, the Star Bridge Hotel was only a pile of ruins. Countless people were gathered around, pointing and discussing. Meanwhile, Han Zhao's group and the Mech Legion had disappeared without a trace. The security forces hurriedly cleaned up the scene but did not find any clues. The people I was monitoring are all dead, and their corpses are gone. I can't even find the traces of the attackers? Sardim was furious. Because of Han Zhao's control, the spies that Sardim used to monitor Colin and the others did not inform him immediately. The mechanical security forces also did not stop Han Zhao's group along the way. Even the surveillance images were destroyed, making it impossible for Sardim to track them. Sardim was still in the dark and had no idea what was going on. Who killed Colin and the others? To be able to kill a Calamity-grade super in such a short time, how strong was the attacker? Furthermore, what was the attacker's motive? Were they bounty hunters? Or were they a special force that took orders from Cisco? Or was there more to it? If the attacker was not Cisco's men, how was he going to explain to Cisco when the people he was monitoring were all killed and the attacker disappeared? Serene could not help but have a headache. He could only report this sudden situation to Cisco. Chapter 746. At the same time, Han Shao brought Hela and Fu Ding away from the scene. He held the evolution cube tightly in his hands with a complicated expression. Picking up the evolution cube was something that he did not expect at all. After the surprise, Han Shao gradually calmed down. The appearance of the evolution cube here was definitely not because of Fu Ding. There had to be a deeper reason behind it. Something had happened in a place that he could not see. The appearance of the evolution cube had cleared up the information blind spot. Han Zhao's brain worked quickly, re-examining the series of events and speculating the cause and effect. Cisco's evolution cube appeared in the hands of these people. This means that God stole the universal treasure from Cisco in some way and got his subordinates to transport it. No wonder they were silent for so many months after killing Herifel. It turns out that their goal was not revenge but the evolution cube, Han Shao understood. It seems like I misunderstood. These people are not here to deal with me but to steal the treasure. However, why did they kill Herifel? Is it related to stealing the treasure or something else? In his previous life, the evolution cube had first appeared in the hands of the Arcane Church. If not for Austin revealing the secret, Han Shao would not have known that the evolution cube actually belonged to Cisco at this time. Perhaps this was not a secret among the upper echelons, but it would not be made public. At the level of the players, it was naturally difficult for them to know this information. In the later versions of his previous life, the players who joined the Arcane Church could pay faction contribution points and anas in exchange for the opportunity to use the evolution cube. The effect of the evolution cube was mainly focused on species evolution. The specific effects varied from person to person. The weak would become stronger, and the strong would become stronger. The effect of using the evolution cube for the first time was the best. As the genes continued to be optimized, it would gradually lose its effect. I don't know what happened to the evolution cube from Cisco to the Arcane Church. How did God get involved? Han Shao was suddenly stunned. He remembered that in his previous life, there was information about God causing trouble in the star pupil Protoss race. However, it did not happen during this period but during the version 3.0 to version 4.0 update. The players did not personally experience it and only recorded it in text form. There was no mention of it being related to the evolution cube. Philip, search for recent news reports on the star pupil Protoss. Han Shao immediately gave the order. The report on planet Avitan was quickly found by Philip, but due to the government's control of public opinion, the details were blurred out. They only said that planet Avitan had experienced a drastic change and suffered heavy casualties, but they did not mention God's name. In the huge star field, there would be hundreds of similar news every day. The incident on planet Avitan did not cause much of an impact in the shattered star ring, and Han Shao would not pay attention to a small piece of news that had nothing to do with him. Han Shao thought about it and said, the incident on planet Avitan should have been done by God. He probably used some sort of diversion tactic to steal the evolution cube from Cisco. This meant that God's attack on the star pupil Protoss race had been brought forward? Connecting this to Herifel's death, Han Shao was shocked. Could it be that God's actions have something to do with me? Is this the butterfly effect? What a pity! If only I had left one alive. Han Shao was a little frustrated. In order to be absolutely sure, he had gone all out. Who knew that the enemy would be so weak and be killed in an instant? There was no way to interrogate them now. Wait a minute. This time, Han Shao was suddenly stunned. Thinking about the source of his intelligence, a new doubt appeared in his mind. Since ES-God's subordinates were acting in secret, and the star pupil Protoss race did not announce the theft of the evolution cube, the reason why Sardim was monitoring this group of people was very intriguing. Maybe Sardim was not doing it for the Tyla civilization's bounty, but for the evolution cube in their hands? Han Zhao's brows furrowed, and he thought of 3 possibilities. The first possibility was that Sardim had a special intelligence channel and knew the whereabouts of the evolution cube, so he wanted to snatch it himself. The second possibility was that the Mecha Empire knew about this and wanted to benefit from it, so they ordered Sardim, who was stationed in the Shattered Star Ring, to intercept the evolution cube. The last possibility was that Sardim was instructed by Cisco to help the star pupil Protoss snatch the evolution cube. No, Cisco might not have told the truth, and Sardim only knew to monitor this group of people but might not know about the existence of the evolution cube. Either way, Sardim was a competitor, and the last possibility was the worst. It meant that he might have to face a real beyond grade A super while Cisco was on his way. Han Xiao sized up the evolution cube in his hands with a solemn expression. He was no stranger to the evolution cube. At the very least, he knew that the original version of the evolution cube was extremely huge, and the one in his hands was obviously a complete portable version. Austin said that he has never seen what the evolution cube looks like. During this period, Cisco did not publicly display the evolution cube like the Arcane Church, so there should be very few people who know about it. Sardim might not be able to recognize it. At this time, Han Xiao suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. He hurriedly contacted Aurora on the spaceship. "What's the current situation at the ground port?" Aurora was surprised. "Uncle, how do you know what happened here?" "Just now, all the ground ports issued a notice saying that someone is attacking the city, so they are temporarily closing the takeoff ports and implementing a port departure control. All spaceships are not allowed to leave planet Macipher until they catch the culprit." As expected, Han Xiao clenched his fist. He had just killed ES-God's subordinates, and Sardim had immediately sealed off the entire planet, not allowing anyone to leave. Such a big move was not only to catch the culprit who attacked the city, but also to keep the evolution cube on the planet. However, this created a new problem. If he hid his tracks so that Sardim would not be able to chase after him, how long would it take for Sardim to find the evolution cube if he hid on planet Macipher safely? There were so many people on planet Macipher, and the difficulty was like finding a needle in a haystack. Without the corresponding detection method, sealing off the planet would be futile. Therefore, Sardim definitely has a method to locate the evolution cube. Maybe it's some kind of detection device that can detect the location of the evolution cube as long as it's within a certain distance. It could also be Cisco's detection method, but the accuracy of the detection should be limited. Otherwise, Sardim would have already located me. Han Xiao thought to himself. Although he had not personally experienced the entire process, based on the clues from the evolution cube, he had already guessed the general situation. Thinking of this, Han Xiao told the two of them to stop. Originally, Han Xiao wanted to leave planet Macipher immediately after killing Orozen. However, before he could return to the spaceship, Sardim had already implemented air control. If he wanted to leave now, he could only forcefully break through the fleet's defense line. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to return to the port and decided to think about how to deal with the evolution cube that he had accidentally obtained. Han Xiao summarized his current situation. Obtaining the evolution cube meant that he would have to face Sardim, whose intentions were unknown, Cisco, whose house had been robbed, ES-God, and the Arcane Church. This meant that at least 2 beyond grade as and 1 universal civilization would find trouble with him. Han Xiao took a deep breath and realized that the evolution cube was a hot potato. It was both a surprise and a risk. In that case, he would have to be careful when dealing with the evolution cube. Han Xiao became serious and quickly calculated the pros and cons in his mind. There are only two ways to deal with it: hide it or hand it over. If I want to keep the evolution cube, I'm not far from beyond grade A and have the qualifications to occupy a universal treasure. However, the consequence is that I will become an enemy of Cisco, and God will target me in order to snatch the evolution cube. I'm now like fire and water with the tyrant. If Cisco joins forces with the tyrant because of this, the situation won't be good. The advantage of keeping the evolution cube is that it is a rare commodity. Not only can I use the evolution cube to strengthen the Black Star Corps and my troops, but I can also attract a large number of organizations. There shouldn't be many civilizations that can resist the temptation of the evolution cube. Cisco did not do this because the Arcane Church and him monopolized the right to use the evolution cube and did not want to use the evolution cube to nurture competitors. Han Xiao nodded. Sardim had locked down the planet but could not stop him from taking the evolution cube away. Even if he did not forcefully break through, he could use Void Dimension Hyperdrive to secretly leave planet Macipher with the evolution cube. As long as Sardim could not find the evolution cube, the restrictions would be lifted sooner or later, and Hela and the other two would be able to escape in a spaceship. The problem was that if he kept the evolution cube, it would be impossible to hide it from these organizations. At that time, the Black Star Corps would become the target of everyone. Han Xiao pondered. If I hand it over, it's just a question of who to hand it over to. Actually, I don't have many choices right now. It's just God, the Mecha Empire, the Universal Civilizations, and Cisco. Handing it over to God was to turn him into a friend. However, if this matter was exposed, he would become enemies with the 3 Universal Civilizations and many other organizations. Overall, the risk was too great, and the disadvantages outweighed the benefit. Handing it over to the Mecha Empire was a strange move. While he was negotiating with Sardim on planet Macipher, he could immediately throw the hot potato that was the evolution cube to someone else in exchange for a large amount of resources. This would allow him to get rid of the risk and stay out of the whirlpool of conflict. If he handed it over to the Universal Civilizations, he would become their loyal ally. The results would be different no matter who he handed it over to. If he handed it over to the Radiant Federation, he would be able to exchange it for a large amount of resources. If he handed it over to the Red Empire, he would be able to obtain both resources and the ticket to the Flickering World. However, if he handed it over to these two, the Arcane Church, who saw the evolution cube as theirs, would definitely become enemies with him. If he handed it over to the Arcane Church, the situation would be a little more complicated. Cisco was already half an ally of the Arcane Church, and the Arcane Church might not give up on Cisco and favor him. If the Arcane Church did not stand up for Cisco, they might lose a Beyond Grade A ally. However, he would also become a Beyond Grade A, and the Arcane Church might not use force to snatch the evolution cube. In that case, the final result might be that after he handed over the evolution cube, the Arcane Church would return it to Cisco and continue to maintain the loan agreement. This way, not only would he be able to protect Cisco, but he would also become an ally of the Arcane Church, and he would still be able to use the evolution cube. Cisco would be grateful to the Arcane Church, but he would not like him or even become enemies with him. Of course, the Arcane Church was a huge organization and was not afraid of angering Cisco. There was also a possibility that they would kindly accept the evolution cube. The last option would be to return the evolution cube to its rightful owner and return it to Psyker. This would undoubtedly allow him to gain Psyker's friendship, and he might even be able to obtain the right to borrow the evolution cube like the Arcane Church. Black Star, where are we going now? Are we not going back to the spaceship? Just as Han Xiao was weighing the pros and cons, Fu Ding could not help but ask. Han Xiao came back to his senses, thought for a moment, and shook his head. No. Hela, bring Aurora back. We'll find a place to hide. He could not return to the Cornerstone Summit Corporation. The first person Sardim would suspect would definitely be him, a calamity-grade mechanic of unknown origins. Since he would be suspected if he went back and disappeared, there was no need for him to go back and act. Anyway, it was all done by him. I, Barn, am not afraid of anything. Han Xiao temporarily put down his hesitation. He was used to planning ahead and considering the possible consequences. However, no matter what, at this moment the evolution cube belonged to him alone. He would enjoy it first. Your Excellency Cisco, I have locked down the port of the planet. On the other side, Sardim was communicating with Cisco. Before I arrive, don't let anyone go, Cisco said calmly. Okay, but please be quick. I can't lock down the planet forever. Sardim had a helpless look on his face. Thankfully, he had the excuse of hunting down the troublemakers and maintaining law and order. Locking down the planet for a few days was fine, but locking it down for too long would negatively affect Planet Macipher's business. This was something he could not accept. Thank you for your hard work. I'm almost there. Cisco nodded. Sai, what should I do now? You don't have to do anything else. Just make sure that no one leaves Planet Macipher. If anyone tries to leave, stop them, Cisco said slowly. In his senses, the evolution cube was still on Planet Macipher. However, due to the distance, he could not pinpoint it accurately. Therefore, when Sardim informed him that God's subordinates had been killed, Cisco was slightly shocked but quickly regained his composure. As long as the evolution cube was still on Planet Macipher, it was fine. Once he arrived, he would be able to find the location of the evolution cube. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.